Chapter 981. If the poison sect hadn't been destroyed and its bloodlines still existed, then the problems Han Yunshi and the others were facing today wouldn't have been a problem at all. The Snow Wolf clan would never reveal their clan's secrets, but after the poison sect and the Snow Wolf clan merged and gradually gained power, the Snow Wolf clan no longer had the final say in many matters. Both the poison pills and the perplexing butterfly illusion were developed after the poison sect and the Snow Wolf clan merged. After understanding the history of Medical City's poison doctors establishing the poison sect, Han Yunshi firmly believed that their poison skills couldn't compare to the Snow Wolf clan's. In other words, if the Snow Wolf clan wanted to develop the poison pills and the perplexing butterfly illusion, they wouldn't have waited until the poison sect got involved. Why did they only develop the poison pills and the perplexing butterfly illusion after the poison sect got involved? The reason couldn't be simpler. The Snow Wolf clan had no ambitions. They only wanted to conceal their identities and protect the poison beasts. The poison sect's poison doctors were ambitious. There was no smoke without fire. Back then, Medical City didn't destroy the poison sect on the grounds that they were poison goo humans. It was just that the poison sect hadn't been using poison the entire time. Medical City must have never expected the Snow Wolf clan to exist. Even they hadn't expected the truth to be like this when they tried to rehabilitate the poison sect. Since they had the secret recipe, why didn't they use it? Gu Beiyue muttered to himself. Could it be that they couldn't find the poison, or, before Gu Beiyue could finish, Gu cut in. They were waiting for the poison plants in the glass wall to bear fruit and ripen. Everyone suddenly understood a lot. Han Yunshi said with certainty, so Bai Yanqing ate those fruits. The poison goo humans' immortality actually meant that they couldn't be killed, nor could they be injured or sick to death. It wasn't true that they were immortal. They couldn't beat time and would die of old age. Based on the time it took for the fruits to ripen, Bai Yanqing was probably the first poison goo human in the history of the poison sect. Now, even if he had the secret recipe, it would be impossible for him to grow another one. This was because it would take at least a few hundred years for those poisonous herbs to blossom and bear fruit to ripen. If Bai Yanqing couldn't wait, they couldn't wait either. Long Feiyi didn't make a sound. He silently poured tea for everyone. Although he was serving everyone, his elegant movements and noble sitting posture didn't look like he was serving at all. Instead, it looked like he was bestowing rewards. Gu Beiyue looked at Long Feiyi. Your Highness, if you were to choose between the two, would you choose the poison goo human or the perplexing butterfly illusion? Perplexing butterfly illusion. Long Feiyi answered without hesitation. That's right. Perplexing butterfly illusion can restrain the poison goo man. Gu Beiyue said. At these words, everyone understood. Bailey Mingxiang and Su Donglin had appeared at some point and nodded in understanding. If they could control and restrain the poison goo man, then seizing control of Cloud Realm continent wouldn't be a problem. If the poison goo man wanted to return to normal, he had to rely on perplexing butterfly illusion. If the poison goo man wanted to remain undying, he had to be wary of perplexing butterfly illusion. In the end, the poison sect's strongest weapon was perplexing butterfly illusion, not its poison pills. The one who has perplexing butterfly illusion controls the world. These words must have come from the poison sect. Han Yunshi said with certainty. Only the poison sect knew of the secret of perplexing butterfly illusion. Why would the poison sect spread such a rumor while researching the poison goo man? Logically speaking, the poison sect should have kept perplexing butterfly illusion a secret. It looks like the poison sect is divided internally. Interesting, Long Feiyi said indifferently. Only the poison sect's orphans knew the truth. Of course, Han Yunshi was an exception. After a round of discussion and speculation, Han Yunshi and the others had a rough idea of the poison sect's past and what the perplexing butterfly illusion and the poison goo man were all about. Although they hadn't found the catalyst yet, they at least knew how to restrain Bai Yanqing. Their goal for this trip had been achieved. Now, all their questions were focused on Bai Yanqing. Had Bai Yanqing learned of the poison pill's secret from the wordless steel, or had he dug it out from the ruins of the poison sect's Cloudwater Palace like Gu? Or had the poison sect's orphans passed the secret down through generations? Just how many orphans were left in the poison sect? Who was that mysterious person in the forest? These matters didn't affect their plan to deal with Bai Yanqing, but they were related to Han Yunxi's origins. The clues they had were limited, so this was all they could speculate. Han Yunxi suddenly wished she could quickly ascend to the 3rd rank so she could communicate with Lil Thing through her consciousness and ask it about the Snow Wolf clan and the poison sect. Lil Thing looked small, but it was already very old. It had experienced everything that had happened in the poison sect, so it must know much more than Bai Yanqing and the murals in the wordless steel. Gu Beiwei was also thinking about Lil Thing. He suddenly smiled and said, "It looks like Lil Thing is also very old." If Lil Thing heard this, would it be in a bad mood? Is the gentleman disdaining me for being old? Actually, I might be old, but my heart is still young. Gu smiled. He had a good impression of Lil Thing. The snow wolf's true form is actually a squirrel. Did it eat those poisonous plants and turn into a wolf? Gu Beiwen nodded with a smile. Those poisonous plants in the sky pit have all withered. What a pity! At this moment, Han Yunxi fell silent. She was really conflicted about her origins. She wanted nothing more than to kill Bai Yanqing, but she also didn't want to bear the infamy of patricide. Right now, Mu Xen was pregnant and had left because the poison sect's young master had an affair with another woman. The poison sect's young master had once given Mu Xen a 10,000-year-old blood jade as a token of love. Later, Mu Xen gave it to Lady Lianxin, who then arranged for Han Kongan to become a director. If this poison sect's young master really was Bai Yanqing, then which woman had Bai Yanqing been with back then? If this poison sect's young master wasn't Bai Yanqing, then who was Bai Yanqing to the poison sect? How was he related to the poison sect's young master? How did Bai Yanqing know that Mu Xen had gone to the Han family and gotten pregnant? Moreover, how did Bai Yanqing know that she had a birthmark on her back? How did he know that she was a descendant of Western Qin's imperial clan? Han Yunxi was a little tired from knowing and speculating too much. She shot a pitiful look at Long Fei Yi, asking for help. She wanted Long Fei Yi to help her think things through. Han Yunxi didn't know that this was the first time she'd acted so coquettishly. She also didn't know that a woman's coquettishness was the best way to capture a man's heart. Seeing her inadvertent pitiful expression, Long Fei Yi couldn't help but stroke her bangs and say dotingly, "Don't worry, I'll figure out Bai Yanqing's background." Gu saw all of this and pursed his lips. He didn't disturb them like before. However, his gloominess was written all over his face. He secretly thought that he had to figure out a way to investigate Bai Yanqing's background. Seeing Long Fei Yi withdraw his hand, Gu said loudly, "Hey, now let's discuss what to do next." They had to face Bai Yanqing and guard against the D clan and Northern Li at the same time. They couldn't do two things at once. If Gu didn't have to protect them, he could focus on finding the fire and metal of 10,000 poisons. However, Gu couldn't be too far away from Han Yunxi now. He had to guard against Bai Yanqing's revenge at all times. Bai Yanqing hasn't done anything for so many days. There must be something else going on, Long Fei Yi said calmly. Let's wait a few days and see what he does. Long Fei Yi's style had always been to deal with changes by sticking to the status quo. He wanted to deal with the D clan and Northern Li more. It was at this moment that Su Donglin suddenly received a secret missive from the Shadow Guard. Seeing that it was from Northern Li, he hurried over and interrupted Long Fei Yi. "Your Highness, an urgent missive from Northern Li," Su Donglin said respectfully. Long Fei Yi was slightly alarmed. An urgent missive from Northern Li at this time couldn't be anything good. He opened it and was still surprised by the contents. Ningcheng is at Jun Yixie's place. He and Jun Yixie are working together. Last night, they started moving 30,000 battle horses. Long Fei Yi read the letter. Everyone was stunned. The D clan had really rebelled. If it had been the elders of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium or the deputy generals of the Ning clan troops, Han Yunxi might still have some hope. Ningcheng was her last hope. But neither Cloud Realm Trade Consortium nor Ningjing's troops had openly betrayed her, but it was Ningcheng who had betrayed her. It had to be said that Han Yunxi was caught off guard by the sudden news. In her heart, she'd always held onto a sliver of hope for Ningcheng. She didn't hope that Ningcheng would betray her, but that Ning Cheng would return to Western Qin and the D clan's years of persistence and loyalty to his own dreams. But who knew that the first real rebel of the D clan would be Ning Cheng himself? So Bai Yuqiao had really gone to seek refuge with Jun Yixie, while Ning Cheng had been at Jun Yixie's place all this time. He'd made up his mind to rebel because of that needle and her alliance with Long Fei Yi to declare the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin to be a misunderstanding. But Ning Cheng and Jun Yixie's alliance was still quite troublesome. Long Fei Yi made a prompt decision and ordered Leng, go to three-way black market. Su Donglin, summon manager Luo of Kangon Private Bank to East Origin Hall. Ning Cheng and Jun Yixie's alliance was purely because of Jun Yixie's war horses. Jun Yixie and Ning Cheng's alliance was purely because of Jun Yixie's money. He couldn't get their horses or money even if he wanted them. Long Fei Yi's hatred towards Ning Cheng and Jun Yixie was the same. It wasn't just because of the enmity between the two camps, but also because of their personal grudges. Su Donglin obeyed and left. A complicated look flashed across Han Yunxi's eyes. She thought of Ning Jing and Ling. Deacon Jean wasn't moved by their generous offer. Could it be that Deacon Jean was going to find Ning Cheng? Su Donglin, quick, tell Tang Li that Ning Jing might be with Ning Cheng. Han Yunxi exclaimed. Ning Jing and Mu Ling were indeed with Ning Cheng. When Uncle Cheng and Deacon Jean brought the two girls to Jun Yixie's camp to find Ning Cheng was so angry that he almost kicked Uncle Cheng to death. But in front of Jun Yixie, he had no choice but to endure. Chapter 982. On the second day after Long Fei Yi received the secret report, Jun Yixie spread the news of his cooperation with Ning Cheng and the transfer of 30,000 battle horses to the public. 30,000 horses wasn't a small number, so it was impossible to keep such a huge commotion under wraps. It was only a matter of time before word got out, so Jun Yixie decided to spread the news himself to avoid further suspicions. Moreover, as he saw it, this would not only serve as a warning to Long Fei Yi, but also intimidate the Northern Dynasty's emperors. He'd tell his enemies from both north and south that he, Jun Yixie, wasn't someone to be trifled with. With the D-clan support, Jun Yixie really didn't have to fear Long Fei Yi or Emperor Kongcheng. Uncle Cheng was actually still observing from the sidelines. As soon as he heard news of Ning Cheng and Jun Yixie's cooperation, he stopped hesitating and immediately brought along Deacon Jean with him to Jun Yixie's camp with Mu Ling and Ning Jing. He openly announced that he wanted to see Ning Cheng. Mu Ling and Ning Jing were left in the carriage outside the camp while Uncle Cheng and Deacon Jean met with Jun Yixie and Ning Cheng inside. Although Uncle Cheng didn't reveal that he'd kidnapped Ning Jing and Mu Ling in front of Jun Yixie wasn't deaf or blind. Gu and Tang Li had issued bounties all over the world recently. One offered up the secret recipe for the Tang clan's assassination weapons, while the other offered up the medicine Ghost Valley. The news had spread like wildfire and was still the hottest topic in Cloud Realm continent even now. As soon as Jun Yixie found out who was in the carriage, he immediately understood what was going on. He looked at Ning Cheng and laughed loudly. Ning Cheng was furious in his heart, but he had no choice but to pretend to be very calm. He looked at Uncle Cheng coldly and said, "Hee, old Cheng, I didn't expect you to bring me a gift. This family head wants to reward you properly. This is what I should do." Uncle Cheng was very happy and did not notice Master Ning's hidden anger. In fact, when Uncle Cheng knew that Master Ning was with Jun Yixie, he was not sure whether Master Ning was robbed or cooperated with Jun Yixie. He came here with the purpose of persuading Master Ning to betray the Western Qin royal family. That was why he had stayed in Heavenly River City for so many days to observe the situation. Now, Master Ning had thought things through. Not only did he cooperate with Jun Yixie, but he also received Jun Yixie's 30,000 warhorses. Uncle Cheng felt that he had made the right choice in coming here. He had brought a lot of bargaining chips for Master Ning. If Master Ning cooperated with Jun Yixie, he would have the upper hand. With such a merit, perhaps it could make up for his mistake of colluding with outsiders to cheat Myriad Merchant Hall of money and disrespect to Ning Jing, right? Hee, Uncle Cheng, not only will your Master Ning reward you, this prince will also reward you well. Jun Yixie laughed loudly. Ever since he cooperated with Ning Cheng, he had gained confidence and once again considered himself as Northern Li's Prince Kong. Uncle Cheng hurriedly bowed respectfully. I don't dare, I don't dare. Ning Cheng, Ning Jing, you are my younger sister. This prince will leave her to you. Mu Ling. Hee, how about you give her to this prince? Jun Yi Xie asked with a laugh. When Ning Jing and Mu Linger, who were in the carriage outside, heard this, they exploded with anger. What do you take me for? How shameless! I'll have my older sister and brother-in-law teach him a lesson later. Ning Jing and Mu Linger, the two silly girls, only found out that the old man in black was Uncle Cheng when they arrived here. They also found out that they were brought to Ning Cheng and that Ning Cheng had betrayed the Western Qin royal family. Mu Linger angrily scolded, but Ning Jing didn't say a word. Even though she had already heard Ning Cheng's voice, she still couldn't believe it. She didn't want to believe that Ning Cheng would betray Western Qin. Ning Cheng was also extremely angry at Jun Yi Xie's request. Although he was under Jun Yi Xie's control, he didn't lose his temper. He was about to reject Jun Yi Xie's request. Unexpectedly, Deacon Jean, who had been sitting at the side and had been silent all this time, opened his mouth and said, Sanfa Majesty, I'm very sorry. Mu Linger is mine. Master Ning has no right to give her to you. When these words came out, the entire crowd fell silent. Outside the door, Mu Linger immediately quieted down. She waited nervously, afraid that she would miss a single word. Jun Yi Xie lazily raised his eyebrows and finally looked at Deacon Jean. Uncle Cheng lowered his head and rubbed his nose. The corner of his mouth curved into a disdainful sneer. He didn't want to help Jean Zi at all. Here, Jean Zi didn't have the final say. Jean Zi was just a slave. Ning Cheng pretended to be confused and questioned Uncle Cheng, What's going on? Weren't you the one who brought her out? Before Uncle Cheng could answer, Deacon Jean beat him to it. Ning Jing was brought out by Uncle Cheng. I was the one who kidnapped Mu Ling. She owes me 280 million taels of silver and a slave contract. Whoever can settle this matter will have Mu Ling. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about. Deacon Jin's conditions were precisely Jun Yi Xie's shortcomings. Jun Yi Xie had to wait until the 30,000 warhorses were all in the hands of the Ning army before he could get the 500 million taels of silver from Ning Cheng. Even if he had the money, he wouldn't be so generous as to pay 280 million taels of silver for Mu Ling. Of course, Jun Yi Xie could first use the military pay to help Deacon Jean pay off his debt. Then, he could use Mu Linger to exchange for Medicine Ghost Valley. He estimated that he could still make a lot of money. However, there was a risk in using someone to exchange for Medicine Ghost Valley. Gu wasn't someone to be trifled with. Jun Yi Xie wasn't stupid enough to take this risk. He wanted Mu Linger, not because he coveted the Medicine Ghost Valley, but because he wanted to keep Mu Linger as a bargaining chip to control Han Yunxi in the future. After listening to Deacon Jin's conditions, Jun Yi Xie was silent for a long time. Finally, he slowly looked at Ning Cheng and asked, Ning Cheng, he's your slave? Smart people immediately understood what this meant. Since he was a slave, he had to be absolutely obedient. The slave was the master, and the slave didn't have the right to bargain with the master. Ning Cheng smiled at Deacon Jean. Hee, Jean Zi, if Jun Yi Xie hadn't reminded me, I would have forgotten. You're my slave, so why are you talking to me about conditions? Let this family head tell you, from now on, Mu Linger is this family head's hostage. You can't exchange her for anything. As for your debt, this family head will consider whether to help you pay it off or not, depending on your performance. Deacon Jin's eyes, which were hidden under his bangs, flashed with a trace of complexity. He didn't say anything again. He felt that something was wrong with Ning Cheng. Jun Yi Xie touched his chin. It seemed that he wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything. Ning Cheng's words were not only a warning to Deacon Jean, but also to tell him that he wouldn't hand over Mu Ling. Although the 30,000 warhorses had already been sent out, the relationship between Jun Yi Xie and Ning Cheng was still good. While Ning Cheng was under Jun Yi Xie's control, Jun Yi Xie was also under Ning Cheng's control. Moreover, the 30,000 warhorses had already been sent out, but Jun Yi Xie hadn't received his pay yet. Strictly speaking, Jun Yixie was in a more passive position. Since Ning Cheng had rejected him so tactfully, Jun Yixie didn't make any more requests. In any case, Ning Cheng was here. He wouldn't let Mu Linger leave even half a step. Mu Linger was still in his hands. Since he couldn't get any ideas about Mu Linger, Jun Yixie started to get ideas about Ning Jing. He pretended to be joking and said teasingly, "Uncle Cheng, this daughter-in-law of the Tang sect isn't yours anymore, is she?" Uncle Cheng quickly replied, I wouldn't dare. Majesty Kong must be joking." Jun Yixie didn't really understand the relationship between Ning Jing and the Tang sect, nor the relationship between Ning Jing and the Ning family. Of course, everyone present, including Jun Yixie, definitely didn't know the relationship between the Tang sect and the Long Fei Yi. This prince knew it. How dare a subordinate like you kidnap his master? Jun Yixie sneered. He was asking a question. Uncle Cheng glanced at Ning Cheng. Seeing that Ning Cheng didn't say anything, he quickly explained, "Majesty Kong, you might not know this, but Miss Jing used Deacon Jin's kidnapping of Mu Linger to put on a show. As a matter of fact, Tang Li believed it and panicked. As long as we keep our cool, Tang Li will definitely be able to offer better terms. When the time comes, we'll just have to find a middleman to pass on the message. We'll definitely make a profit." Uncle Cheng was truly a sly old fox. As long as they didn't reveal that Ning Jing was in Tianhe City and continued to keep Tang Li in suspense, when Tang Li went crazy from anxiety, they would find a middleman who had nothing to do with the Ning family and Jun Yixie and bring Ning Jing's token to negotiate with Tang Li. When the time came, no matter what the middleman offered, Tang Li would agree to it. Outside the door, Mu Linger couldn't help but shout angrily, "This old man deserves to die." Ning Jing also said coldly, "He deserves to die more than that." Uncle Cheng's plan was very good, but unfortunately, he didn't know that Han Yunxi had already seen through him. On the first day that Mu Linger and Ning Jing disappeared, Han Yunxi had already suspected him and Deacon Jin. When Ning Cheng and Jun Yixie's cooperation was made public, Han Yunxi was very sure that Mu Linger and Ning Jing were in Tianhe City. At this time, Han Yunxi and the others were on their way back to the three-way black market. They had already sent the news to Tang Li, and Tang Li was also on his way to the three-way black market to meet up with them. Ning Cheng glanced at Uncle Cheng but still didn't say anything. Jun Yixie assumed that what Uncle Cheng said was Ning Cheng's idea. Good, we can keep calm and wait. Jun Yixie was in an extremely good mood. Cooperating with Ning Cheng was already a great thing. Now that there were two more important hostages in the army, his chances of success increased. Now, as long as the 30,000 war horses were in the hands of the Ning clan army, he would be able to take action. Men, clear out 2 tents and properly entertain the guests. Jun Yixie loudly ordered. Uncle Cheng and Deacon Jin were asked to leave. Mu Linger and Ning Jing were also brought down from the carriage and sent to the tents. In the camp, only Jun Yixie and Ning Cheng were left. Ning Cheng, how long will it take for the 30,000 war horses to get into the hands of the Ning clan army? Jun Yixie asked. Ning Cheng had always been leading troops on Tianning's northern borders. Most of the troops under his command were cavalrymen, so he was always in need of war horses. Thus, the 30,000 war horses would be like adding wings to a tiger. It shouldn't take too long to get used to them. Jun Yixie needed Ning Cheng to promise him a certain amount of time. 3 months. Ning Cheng was intentionally stalling for time, even though he only needed a month. As long as the 30,000 war horses and cavalrymen couldn't get used to each other, they wouldn't start fighting. As long as they didn't start fighting, he could do his best to reduce Han Yunxi's troubles. If he could cheat Jun Yixie a little more, he would do so. At the same time, he was also preparing for the worst. No matter when the silver drafts would flow into Myriad Merchant Hall, he was planning to wait until the 30,000 war horses were in the hands of the Ning clan army. Then he would find a chance to take Jun Yixie down with him. He would never give Jun Yixie any military pay or provisions. He wouldn't give him a single copper coin. Rather than being tortured by Jun Yixie and used as a hostage to threaten the D clan, he'd rather die a quick death. In some ways, Su Xiaoyu was very similar to him. That was why he couldn't help but dote on Su Xiaoyu when he saw her that day. He understood Su Xiaoyu's stubbornness and decisiveness. Ning Qing had made all his plans, but he never expected Uncle Qing to bring Ning Jing and Mu Ling'er with him. If he and Jun Yixie turned against each other, what would happen to Ning Jing and Mu Ling'er then? Chapter 983. Ning Qing knew very well that once he fell out with Jun Yixie, Ning Jing and Mu Ling'er would definitely become Jun Yixie's hostages. Ning Jing could sacrifice herself for the D clan and Western Qin just like him, but what about Mu Ling'er? Mu Ling'er had nothing to do with the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin. Mu Ling'er was innocent. Mu Ling'er was also Han Yunxi's cousin. Ning Qing couldn't imagine how much Han Yunxi would hate him and the D clan if he couldn't protect Mu Ling'er. Thinking of this, even though he was distressed, he could still smile bitterly. He unconsciously stroked the phoenix feather mask on his face and thought, wasn't Han Yunxi's hatred for him enough? Was this not enough? 3 months? Ning Qing, are you kidding me? Jun Yixie's question interrupted Ning Qing's thoughts. It's up to you whether you want to believe it or not. In the past year, the Ning family army has suffered heavy losses and lost more than half of its cavalry. It'll take at least 3 months for them to train again. Ning Qing said seriously, I fight battles that I have no confidence in. If you can't wait, I'm sorry, but the Ning family army can't cooperate with you. A complicated look flitted across Jun Yixie's eyes. He believed Ning Qing's words. In the past few battles, the Ning family army had indeed suffered heavy losses. Otherwise, the Ning family army wouldn't be afraid of Long Fei Ye's army today. 3 months, 3 months. Jun Yixie muttered to himself and tapped his fingers lightly. He pondered for a long time, then suddenly stood up and asked seriously, Ning Qing, with the Ning family army's current strength, how long can they resist Long Fei Yi? What do you want to do? Ning Qing asked. Jun Yixie sneered. Hee, once your military pay arrives, this prince will definitely take the heads of the Northern Dynasty's emperors within 3 months. Ning Qing understood everything. Jun Yixie planned to rebel in 3 months and take over Northern Li. Therefore, he needed to ensure that the south was safe. In other words, Jun Yixie's real military strength and influence in Northern Li were not as strong as he had boasted. If the Ning family army couldn't hold off the Long Fei Yi within 3 months, Jun Yixie wouldn't be able to deal with the Northern Dynasty's emperors with all his might, and he wouldn't have an absolute chance of winning. Ning Qing's eyes flashed. He had finally found the best opportunity to trick Jun Yixie. Originally, he didn't want the Ning family army to go to war with the East Qin army, but it looked like he'd have to adjust his plans now. Perhaps he could even buy some time for Ning Jing and the rest. It'll be the 15th of the 10th month in 3 days, right? Ning Qing pretended to think for a while before he spoke again, his face serious. The Ning family army has an absolute advantage in winter battles. Long Fei Yi has 2 armies under his command. One is the Southern Army, while the other is the Bailey Army. Neither of them are familiar with winter battles. Hearing this, Jun Yixie rejoiced. No matter what, your Ning family army will be able to last through this winter. Definitely. Ning Qing laughed. After this winter, the 30,000 cavalrymen will be able to enter the battlefield next spring, hee. Jun Yixie rejoiced and patted Ning Qing on the shoulder. Brother, after this winter, Cloud Realm Continent will be ours next spring. By now, Ning Qing was used to Jun Yixie's constant probing. He avoided Jun Yixie's hand and said coldly, when the time comes, just leave Han Yunxi to me. There's no need to waste words on anything else. Ning Qing's words made Jun Yixie's heart fill with sweetness. Ning Qing wasn't interested in fighting for the world with him, which was something he rejoiced over. With Ning Qing's guarantee, Jun Yixie kept Ning Qing around to discuss the details of their cooperation. In order to win Jun Yixie's complete trust, Ning Qing gave him plenty of practical suggestions. It wasn't until late at night that Ning Qing finally left the main tent and returned to his own. He should have gone to see Uncle Cheng and Deacon Jean, as well as Ning Jing. But he didn't. Under the watchful eyes of the soldiers, his every move was very cautious and careful. Jun Yixie seemed to trust him a lot, but he was always on guard. If he made one wrong move, all his previous efforts would be for naught. Ning Cheng could only hope that Uncle Cheng and Ning Jing would be on the same page so that Jun Yixie wouldn't be suspicious. At this very moment, Ning Jing was in Uncle Cheng's tent. Ning Jing sat high above and sneered coldly, "Old Cheng, how dare you? You acted first and reported later. You even dared to rob me." "Miss Jing, Han Yunxi is so brazenly seducing Long Fei Yi. Why should the D clan still be loyal to him? Master Ning can rule the world. Why should he forever be at the feet of a woman?" Uncle Cheng said righteously, "Miss Jing, you definitely don't know, but Tang Li has already offered a bounty and is willing to exchange the secret recipe of the Tang sect's hidden weapons for you. Tang Li has you in his heart. As long as you remain calm, you will definitely be able to take down the Tang sect. Miss Jing, you are now the biggest bargaining chip for Master Ning and Jun Yixie's cooperation. Why are you still so calculative?" Ning Jing was shocked. She didn't expect Tang Li to be so impulsive. She angrily rebuked Uncle Cheng. "Do Ning Cheng and I have to thank you? This subordinate doesn't dare." Uncle Cheng quickly lowered his head. Ning Jing didn't want to waste time with him. She questioned, "Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi went 100 Poison sect? Is there a result?" This was the thing she was most concerned about. Uncle Cheng sneered. "Miss Jing, don't tell me you still haven't seen it? Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi have long been connected. You guys worked together to kill Bai Yanqing and panicked, claiming that the grudge between the Eastern and Western Qin was just a misunderstanding. Before Jun Yixie's warhorse even left Sky River City, the entire D clan had already wanted to instigate a rebellion." Ning Jing's heart pounded wildly. She asked, "What makes you think they're lying?" "Hehe, if they weren't guilty, why would they kill Bai Yanqing?" "Miss Jing, you might not know this, but at that time, people from all walks of life were gathered outside 100 Poison sect. Representatives from both the Eastern and Western Qin camps were there." "Hehe, but no one saw Bai Yanqing," Uncle Cheng answered. Ning Jing didn't say anything else. She didn't want to waste any more words with Uncle Cheng. She got up and strode away. She wanted to see Ning Cheng. No matter what she saw or heard, unless Ning Cheng personally told her that he was going to betray the Western Qin imperial family, she wouldn't believe it. The moment Ning Jing arrived outside Ning Cheng's tent, Uncle Cheng also caught up to her. The guards naturally let her in. When Ning Jing and Uncle Cheng entered, they realized that there were 3 guards inside Ning Cheng's tent. They weren't slow people and immediately realized that Jun Yixie was keeping a close eye on Ning Cheng. It was also at this time that the two of them realized a problem that they had neglected for a long time. Jun Yixie's warhorse had already left Tianhe City. Even if Ning Cheng and Jun Yixie had a lot of cooperation details to discuss, they should be done by now. Ning Cheng should have gone back long ago. Why was he still under Jun Yixie's surveillance? Could it be that Jun Yixie had something on Ning Cheng that he couldn't leave? Ning Cheng personally lit 2 oil lamps. With a glance, he warned Ning Jing and Uncle Cheng to be careful with their words. "Sit down," Ning Cheng said as he walked towards the tea table. Ning Jing followed him and sat down. Uncle Cheng stood at the side. Ning Cheng didn't say anything. Ning Jing and Uncle Cheng didn't know the situation, so they didn't dare to speak casually. "Hehe, Uncle Cheng, sit down. You've done a great service this time," Ning Cheng said. Uncle Cheng finally realized that he had made a big mistake. If Ning Cheng was under Jun Yixie's control and couldn't leave this damned place, then he would be causing trouble for Ning Cheng by bringing Ning Jing and Mu Ling here. Whether Ning Cheng and Jun Yixie were really cooperating or not, Ning Jing and Mu Ling wouldn't be Ning Cheng's bargaining chips. Instead, they would be his stumbling blocks. Uncle Cheng's face turned completely pale. This subordinate doesn't dare. Ning Cheng didn't ask him to sit down again. Instead, he said to Ning Jing, "Jing, Big Brother believes that you can take down Tang Li. You really didn't disappoint Big Brother." As he said this, he looked meaningfully at Ning Jing and continued, "Do you believe that Big Brother will definitely take down Han Yunxi?" Ning Jing almost cried. She understood what Ning Cheng meant. Ning Cheng asked her again if she believed that he wouldn't betray Han Yunxi and the Western Qin royal family. "I believe. Big Brother, no matter what, I believe in you." She deliberately paused for a moment before continuing, I believe that you can take down Han Yunxi. You definitely can. The soldiers nearby stopped and listened to their conversation. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. It's good that you believe. Stay here. Ning Qing knew that Ning Jing understood. Uncle Cheng also understood. He was too disappointed. Master Ning was simply foolishly loyal. It wasn't convenient to talk here. No matter what, he had to find an opportunity to persuade Master Ning. Ning Cheng and Ning Jing talked about some irrelevant things before Ning Jing took her leave. Ning Jing pondered about how to find an opportunity to meet Ning Cheng alone and understand the situation here clearly. Ning Cheng was also thinking of ways to find an opportunity to clear up the misunderstanding between Eastern and Western Qin with Ning Jing, Uncle Cheng, and even Mu Ling. He wanted to clarify Jun Yixie's identity and his partnership with Jun Yixie. Ning Jing returned to the tent and told Mu Ling everything she knew. Mu Ling was very surprised. Ning Jing, if my sister knew about your brother's loyalty, she would definitely find a way to save him. Mu Ling said seriously. The news here can't be sent out. Han Yunxi must have guessed that we are here. She will hate my brother to death. Ning Jing was very upset. Aya, don't worry. Be careful of the baby. Mu Ling hurriedly persuaded. At this juncture, Ning Jing's belly couldn't be harmed again. Once something happened, her pregnancy couldn't be concealed. At that time, Jun Yixie wouldn't let her go. Ning Jing, don't worry. Let's wait for 2 more days. Maybe your brother already has a way to deal with Jun Yixie. Let's find an opportunity to ask him clearly first. Mu Ling persuaded again. Who knew that for 3 days, neither of them could find an opportunity. Jun Yixie personally came to see Mu Ling and Ning Jing. Mu Ling ignored him, but Ning Jing calmly cooperated with Uncle Cheng to put on a show. On the 4th night, someone brought Ning Ching an opportunity. This person was none other than Bai Yuqiao. At night, Bai Yuqiao withdrew all the soldiers and arranged for her own people to stand guard outside the camp. Ning Ching, I beg you for a favor, Bai Yuqiao said and immediately knelt down. Ning Ching didn't expect this, but he still looked high and mighty. Cold and disdainful looked at Bai Yuqiao. I can't accept such a big gift. What is it? Say it first. Chapter 984. What kind of important matter could make the always arrogant and conceited Bai Yuqiao kneel down to Ning Cheng? Ning Cheng waited for Bai Yuqiao to reply, but Bai Yuqiao said, Ning Cheng, as long as you promise me, I'll buy you whatever wine you want. As if feeling that his conditions were not enough, Bai Yuqiao quickly added, anything else is fine too. As long as you help me. Would she do something like murdering Jun Yixie? Ning Cheng would not believe Bai Yuqiao so easily. He said impatiently, if you're not going to say what it is, get out. I want to rest. Bai Yuqiao became anxious and lowered his voice. Help me save someone. Ning Cheng could not help but laugh. Miss Bai, aren't you overestimating me? In the army, he was always under the control of others. He even had to be careful with his words. How could he save someone that even Bai Yuqiao could not? Bai Yuqiao could not sleep in the middle of the night, so he came to make fun of him? Ning Cheng pointed to the door, telling Bai Yuqiao to scram. Bai Yuqiao quickly got up and lowered his voice. Help me save Su Xiaoyu. As long as you can save her and leave Northern Li, I'll promise you anything. Ning Cheng, I'm not joking with you. A complicated look flashed past Ning Cheng's eyes. He really did not expect it to be Su Xiaoyu. If it was to save Su Xiaoyu, Bai Yuqiao really could not save her. Now, in Jun Yixie's eyes, Su Xiaoyu was equivalent to the perplexing butterfly illusion. Previously, Jun Yixie did not ask much, but these 2 days, he would personally visit Su Xiaoyu every 2 days and even interrogate her personally. Hee, you're not related to that girl. Why did you save her? Ning Cheng raised his eyebrows and looked towards Bai Yuqiao as he questioned, Miss Bai, are you betraying your senior brother? In the past few days, Bai Yuqiao had tried his best, but he couldn't find a foolproof solution. He couldn't guarantee Su Xiaoyu's safety, so he came to Ning Cheng for help. For the sake of her younger sister, she had no choice but to betray her senior brother. Although she had liked senior brother since she was young, it had always been one-sided. As rational as she was, it was absolutely impossible for her to sacrifice her own sister for a one-sided love. Besides, her younger sister had suffered enough because of her. She must make it up to her younger sister. Otherwise, she would not be able to atone for her sins even if she died. Bai Yuqiao didn't say anything. Ning Cheng asked seriously, "Why should I believe you?" Bai Yuqiao lowered her head as she clenched her teeth, seemingly hesitating. Ning Cheng waited for a long time but didn't get an answer. He somehow felt that something was wrong with Bai Yuqiao, but he couldn't put his finger on it. It was already so late and he didn't want to get entangled with Bai Yuqiao. If this lass really had something to ask of him, she would definitely come back again. Ning Cheng didn't chase him away as he turned around to leave. Bai Yuqiao finally spoke the truth. "Ning Cheng, I beg you to save my younger sister. Su Xiaoyu is my younger sister." That day, I realized that she has half a jade rui tattoo on her back, which is a pair with the one on my back. She must be my long-lost sister. Ning Cheng turned back in disbelief. Whoever knew that Bai Yuqiao actually turned around and took off his clothes, revealing his bare back. Ning Cheng abruptly opened his eyes as he angrily said, "Put on your clothes." "Ning Cheng, if you don't believe me, I can see it with my own eyes. Su Xiaoyu and I have a pair of tattoos on our backs. I've already arranged everything. I can take you to see Su Xiaoyu's tattoo now," Bai Yuqiao said seriously. Although Ning Cheng didn't want to see it, he still caught a glimpse of Bai Yuqiao's large tattoo when he turned around. He didn't see the shape clearly, but he knew it was there. Bai Yuqiao's matter might really be true. "How do you want me to save her?" Ning Cheng asked. Bai Yuqiao hastily put on his clothes and came forward. "Help me think of a way to send Jun Yixie away for 2 days. As long as he leaves Sky River City for 2 days, I have my own ways to take her away." Bai Yuqiao could take Su Xiaoyu away tonight, but she was very clear that even if she left Sky River City, she wouldn't be able to escape Jun Yixie's sphere of influence. Once Jun Yixie found out about Su Xiaoyu's origins, the two sisters would be finished. She didn't dare to take the risk. Ning Cheng could easily send Jun Yixie away for 2 days. All he needed to do was give Jun Yixie a few handwritten lists and have him go to the neighboring county to exchange for silver notes at Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's private banks. Then Jun Yixie would leave immediately. Of course, Ning Cheng wouldn't waste this golden opportunity so easily. He still had many things he needed Bai Yuqiao for. He said cautiously, "Find Ning Jing and have her see the tattoo clearly. I only trust Ning Jing." "All right, I'll do it right away," Bai Yuqiao rejoiced. Many things were much more convenient in the dead of night. Bai Yuqiao immediately went to find Ning Jing. Ning Jing was just as cautious as Ning Cheng. She followed Su Xiaoyu to Ning Cheng's tent to make sure Bai Yuqiao wasn't tricking her before following Bai Yuqiao to the prison cells. Bai Yuqiao had the female doctor use an excuse to administer acupuncture, while she and Ning Cheng hid in the shadows to watch. Su Xiaoyu was still half asleep. The female doctor had been coming to administer acupuncture and medicine to her frequently these days. Moreover, her 3 meals a day had improved greatly. She had no idea that Bai Yuqiao was behind all of this, but assumed that Ning Cheng had helped her. Ning Jing watched carefully before carefully examining the tattoo on Bai Yuqiao's back. She discovered that the 2 tattoos matched each other perfectly. Moreover, they both had traces of deformation, indicating that they hadn't been added recently. Ning Jing sighed in her heart. She never expected something like this to happen. It had come too suddenly, but it was just in time for them. With Su Xiaoyu's weakness in their hands, she believed that Ning Cheng would be able to make good use of Bai Yuqiao. Bai Yuqiao and Ning Jing returned to Ning Cheng's tent. Ning Jing didn't explain anything. She just nodded at Ning Cheng, and Ning Cheng understood what had happened. Like Ning Jing, he felt both incredulous and fortunate at the same time. Bai Yuqiao was about to speak, but he said, "Jun Yixie won't be able to leave the military camp in the near future. This matter needs to be considered at length." "How long will it take?" Bai Yuqiao asked quickly. "That's hard to say. Perhaps, I'll consider it before discussing with you," Ning Cheng said. Tonight, she was able to make Ning Cheng believe in this matter and agree to help her. Bai Yuqiao was already satisfied. She was about to leave when Ning Cheng called out, "Miss Bai, shouldn't you cure the poison in this family head's body to show your sincerity in cooperating?" When he said that, Ning Jing was shocked. She had been trying to figure out what could be used against Ning Cheng that Jun Yixie had to stay in the military camp. She didn't expect it to be poison. Bai Yuqiao looked awkward. "Ning Cheng, I won't hide it from you. The antidote that you take daily is both an antidote and a slow-acting poison. So I don't know what kind of poison you're suffering from. The antidote is in my senior brother's hands." Ning Jing couldn't take it anymore, but Ning Cheng stopped her. He gave a cold smile. "All right, I believe you. Wait outside the door for a moment. I'll have a word with Ning Jing before you send her back." Bai Yuqiao didn't dare to reject Ning Cheng as she nodded. "You guys take your time, I'll wait." Ning Jing didn't expect that she would have the chance to speak to Ning Cheng alone so soon. The moment Bai Yuqiao stepped out of the door, she immediately asked in a low voice, "Brother, is it safe here?" "It's considered safe now." Ning Cheng's voice was also very low. "Brother, what's the matter with your poison? Can Han Yunshi cure it?" Ning Jing asked anxiously. Han Yunshi could definitely cure it, but was she willing to? "She won't die." Ning Cheng lowered his voice. "Ning Jing, the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin was a misunderstanding. It was the Wind and Black clans who instigated it." Ning Jing knew that Ning Cheng had a lot to say to her, but she never expected this to be the first thing he said. This was something she never dared to imagine. She never dared to imagine that such words would come out of Ning Cheng's mouth. Enmity between his country and his family had always been his obsession. Revenge and restoring his country had always been his goal. But now he was denying everything with his own mouth. "Brother, how did you know?" Ning Jing asked. "Jun Yixie said that he's not a descendant of the Wind clan, but of the Black clan. He was tricked by Yanqing. Yanqing only wants to sow discord between Eastern and Western Qin. He wants Cloud Realm Continent," Ning Cheng continued. Ning Jing was even more shocked. The Black clan that had been missing for so long was actually Jun Yixie. Who knew what Han Yunshi would think if she heard the news? Ning Jing didn't have time to think, and Ning Cheng didn't waste any time either. Although Bai Yuqiao was helping them keep watch, Bai Yuqiao wouldn't be able to do so for long. If they stayed too long, Jun Yixie would be suspicious if the soldiers on night patrol saw them. "I wrote this in secret on a silver note and sent it out. I'm afraid the note hasn't reached Myriad Merchant Hall yet. Once the 30,000 horses reach the Ning clan troops, I'll have to give Jun Yixie 500 million in military pay and provisions. Jun Yixie will definitely attack Northern Li's capital within 10 days. Ning Jing didn't dare to make a sound, but listened quietly. Ning Cheng continued, "It'll take 20 days for the 30,000 horses to reach the Ning clan troops, so we only have a month's time." "Brother, you're thinking of..." Ning Jing couldn't help but interrupt. "You and Mu Ling must leave before the horses arrive." "You only have 20 days, Ning Cheng said seriously. "Then what about you?" Ning Jing grew anxious. Ning Cheng laughed coldly. "Naturally, I'll accompany Jun Yixie to the north." Ning Cheng hadn't planned to give Jun Yixie any military pay and provisions, but if Jun Yixie attacked the north as soon as he got his pay and provisions, he didn't mind giving him some and letting him continue to be arrogant. Within this month, Myriad Merchant Hall will definitely receive the banknotes. They'll do their best to cooperate with the princess. Ning Cheng was very confident. He'd written 2 sentences in the secret text in the banknotes. The first was the truth about Eastern and Western Qin and Jun Yixie's identity. The second was for the D clan to obey Han Yunshi's orders unconditionally, and to see Han Yunshi was the same as seeing him. As long as Jun Yixie attacked, the D clan and East Qin's army would join hands and wait to reap the benefits. Ning Cheng hadn't given the order, so no one in the D clan would dare to attack. Therefore, Ning Cheng wasn't worried about the D clan. His only worry now was that news of him colluding with Jun Yixie would spread. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunshi would attack the D clan first. In that case, they would have internal friction. Moreover, when Myriad Merchant Hall received the banknotes, the misunderstanding would be resolved, and both sides would stop fighting. Jun Yi-xie would inevitably be suspicious. If he could quickly tell Han Yunxi and the others the truth now, the D clan and Great Qin's army would be able to maintain a stalemate. First, there wouldn't be internal friction, and second, Jun Yi-xie's side would be able to justify it. Long Feiyi is preparing his army for war because he's afraid of the 30,000 warhorses, but he doesn't dare to rashly attack. Such an explanation was reasonable, and Jun Yi-xie would definitely believe it. After Ning Jing understood everything, she had mixed feelings. She said, "Brother, there's something I've lied to you." Chapter 985. Ning Jing had lied to him? Ning Cheng stared deeply at Ning Jing and said, "Tang Li?" Uncle Cheng might have forgotten what had happened at Myriad Merchant Hall, but Ning Cheng had always kept it in mind. When Ning Jing had brought Tang Li to Myriad Merchant Hall's casino, she had even worn a mask to hide her identity. What had she done there? She had always told him that she had not captured Tang Li. However, the moment she had gone missing, Tang Li had offered the Tang sect's secret formula for making hidden weapons as a reward. Tang Li clearly cared about her. Actually, Ning Jing knew very well that if Ning Cheng had not been kidnapped at Black Tower, perhaps she and Tang Li would still be trapped at Myriad Merchant Hall. Or perhaps Ning Cheng would have detained Tang Li to threaten the Tang sect. Ning Cheng had already suspected her when they were at Myriad Merchant Hall. "Big brother, I didn't know it was Tang Li." Ning Cheng lowered his head. "Big brother, Although revealing this matter now would not cause too much harm to the D clan and Ning Cheng, Ning Jing still found it difficult to say it. "Speak." Ning Cheng's voice was very cold. He did not have time to let Ning Jing hesitate here. "Big brother, I lied to you about something. The Tang sect is actually—" Ning Jing steeled her heart and said, "The Tang sect is actually Long Feiyi's power. Tang Li is Long Feiyi's cousin and also his subordinate." Ning Cheng was stunned when he heard this. After a while, he chuckled coldly. Long Feiyi. He had racked his brains and sacrificed his most capable subordinates, his closest little sister's happiness, to rope in the Tang sect and get their hidden weapons. But in the end, it was all a joke. A joke that Long Feiyi had been watching the entire time. The Tang sect was Long Feiyi's power? So the marriage wasn't the D clan's fault for marrying Ning Jing into the Tang clan with ulterior motives, but Long Fei's fault for making Tang Li marry Ning Jing with ulterior motives. If Ning Jing had failed to capture Tang Li and been taken by Tang Li instead, then what kind of losses would Cloud Realm Trade Consortium have? Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. Ning Cheng immediately recalled Ning Jing's dowry, the arms trade. Finally, the truth. "When did you find out?" Ning Cheng asked angrily. Who would be able to speak nicely when they found out that they had been played for a fool? "I found out when we were in Medical City," Ning Jing replied honestly. "Why didn't you say anything? Why did you bring Tang Li to the gambling house?" Ning Cheng asked next. Ning Jing fell silent for a long time before she murmured, "Big brother, I like Tang Li." She didn't know how to explain herself. Many things could be explained, but feelings were the only thing that couldn't be explained. No one could be absolutely rational when it came to feelings. In the end, Ning Jing gently stroked her belly hidden beneath her loose robes and said, "The child is almost 5 months old. I wanted to take him away, but now..." Ning Jing knew she shouldn't be asking Ning Ching this question now, but she couldn't wait to ask. Only then could her guilty heart be relieved. She said, "Big brother, if we can leave this place alive, can I go back to the Tang clan?" Since the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin was just a misunderstanding, then there was nothing between her and Tang Li anymore. She missed her days at the Tang clan. She really wanted to see Tang Li before her child was born. Ning Cheng looked at her for a long time before he suddenly broke into a wry smile. Ning Jing didn't know what he was laughing about, but she felt uneasy. No matter what, she had betrayed the D clan. But Ning Cheng only said, "It's enough for you and me to know about this. If we can leave this place alive, don't forget to send me an invitation to my nephew's 1-month-old birthday party." Ning Jing was so moved that she almost threw herself at Ning Cheng, but she didn't dare. She nodded repeatedly. "Big brother, we will definitely leave this place alive. Big brother, Han Yunxi didn't mean to hurt you. She gave that needle to Bai Yanqing. She told me herself that the poison needle was a misunderstanding. Big brother, after you went missing, Han Yunxi helped Myriad Merchant Hall a lot. Ning Jing then told Ning Cheng everything that Han Yunxi had done at Myriad Merchant Hall. Ning Cheng listened quietly, his hand caressing his phoenix feather mask. Big brother, we not only have to guard against Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi attacking the D clan first, but we also have to guard against Han Yunxi cutting off the D clan's source of income. Once Myriad Merchant Hall's source of income is cut off, you might not even be able to give Jun Yixie the money you promised. Ning Jing grew anxious. Big brother, we have to find a way to contact Han Yunxi as soon as possible. Ning Cheng's face turned pale as he listened. He muttered to himself, East Origin Hall. Kangon Bank. His reaction was even more shocking and despairing than when Gu found out that Kangon Bank was Long Fei Ye's property. After all, the few gold cards he had, including a limitless gold card, all came from Kangon Bank. Actually, there was no need for Han Yunxi to cut off Myriad Merchant Hall's source of income. Long Fei might have sealed off his gold cards long ago, leaving him with no soldier's pay and provisions to give Jun Yixie. If he didn't give Jun Yixie any military pay, Jun Yixie wouldn't be able to deal with the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Then Northern Li would remain in a stalemate between the North and the South. Thus, unless the Northern Dynasty's emperors and Jun Yixie joined forces, Long Fei Yi wouldn't have to worry about any changes in Northern Li that could threaten the South. Moreover, the D clan's current wealth could only support them for a year or so. If they supported Jun Yixie as well, they could only last for half a year at most. Even if the D clan and Jun Yixie joined forces, they wouldn't be able to defeat Long Fei Yi even if they didn't have to worry about the Northern Dynasty's emperors attacking the South. Ning Cheng finally realized a fact he'd never considered before. The truth was that Long Fei Yi was Cloud Realm Continent's richest man. No matter how Cloud Realm Continent changed, it couldn't escape the palm of his hand. If Myriad Merchant Hall hadn't been embroiled in that crisis, they might have been able to hold out a little longer. The D clan might have been able to seize some of the initiative as well. What's the relationship between Golden Wing Hall and Long Fei Yi? Ning Cheng asked coldly. The Golden Wing Palace was directly responsible for the fact that the D clan had fallen into the hands of others. Ning Jing shook her head. She only knew that East Origin Hall belonged to Long Fei Yi. She'd asked Han Yunxi about Golden Wing Hall's origins, but Han Yunxi had been puzzled as well. She'd even sent people to investigate. Ning Jing hadn't slept a wink when she learned so much from Han Yunxi. Moreover, what about Ning Cheng, the head of the D clan and head of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium? This kind of feeling was as if his pride had suddenly been trampled under someone's foot. It would hurt, it would hurt. It felt like he'd suddenly discovered that his opponent was many times stronger than he'd imagined. He was so strong that he had no chance of turning the tables. He wasn't willing, but there was nothing he could do. No matter what, even if the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin was just a misunderstanding, Ning Jing knew that Ning Cheng would feel terrible. Han Yunxi, that woman, she made the right choice again. Ning Cheng smiled as he looked away into the darkness of the tent. Ning Jing couldn't see his expression clearly, but it was dark and gloomy. Ning Cheng didn't look back at all. Let's go back, he said simply. I know. Wait for my news. Time was tight. As long as Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi made a move, he'd be in a lot of trouble and danger, whether it was sending troops or cutting off Myriad Merchant Hall's source of income. Thus, he couldn't pin his hopes on those silver drafts anymore. He had to send the secret missive out as soon as possible and deliver it straight to Han Yunxi's hands. Big brother, Mu Ling, has taken care of my pregnancy for me, Ning Jing reminded him before she left. Ning Cheng nodded in understanding and waved her out. Ning Jing watched his lonely back and couldn't bear to see him leave. She stood there for a while before saying, Big brother, get out. Ning Cheng's voice was very cold. Ning Jing had no choice but to leave. Bai Yuqiao stood by the door. Although she was curious as to what the siblings had been talking about for so long, she didn't dare to ask too many questions. She was afraid that Ning Cheng would be on guard against her and refuse to help her if she did. When Ning Jing returned to the tent, Ning Cheng's lonely back appeared in her mind again and again. She tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Mu Ling on the other hand, slept very soundly. Mu Ling didn't know when she left and Mu Ling still didn't know when she returned. Ning Jing sat up. With her big belly, she couldn't sleep as comfortably as before. In private, her movements were very careful. She looked at Mu Ling's clean and pure smile and felt very envious. Who said that Gu was heartless? This girl was the real heartless one. She could still sleep like this in such a situation. Ning Jing couldn't sleep and finally woke Mu Ling up. Mu Ling shot up from the bed. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Ning Jing, who had been sulking, suddenly laughed. It's nothing. I can't sleep. Can you talk to me? Mu Ling patted her chest and let out a long sigh. You scared me to death. It's the middle of the night. Ning Jing, can you not scare me? I just went to see my brother. Ning Jing recounted the incident in detail. Mu Ling was stunned as she listened. Su Xiaoyu has an older sister? Does she know? Ning Jing shook her head. Wouldn't it be bad if she knew? It's better if she doesn't know. Mu Ling nodded and muttered to herself, that's true. If she knew that the person torturing her was her own sister, based on her personality, she would definitely not admit it. As Mu Ling spoke, she suddenly grabbed Ning Jing's hand. So, we're going to be saved soon? Let Bai Yuqiao send a letter to my sister. Let my sister and brother-in-law come and save us. Then I'll be able to see Chi brother. Yes, Ning Cheng will think of a way. Don't worry. As Ning Jing spoke, she thought of something. I'll tell you a piece of good news. Do you want to hear it? Hurry up and say it. Mu Ling was very excited. However, when Ning Jing said it, Mu Ling was so excited that she almost went crazy. Ning Jing said, on the way back, Bai Yuqiao said that Gu put a bounty on Medicine Ghost Valley and is looking for you everywhere. Mu Ling shrieked. She lifted the covers and jumped barefoot onto the ground, scurrying left and right. She was just short of running out of the tent in a frenzy. She screamed nonstop. Ning Jing covered her ears. What's going on? Ladies, what's wrong? Say something. The soldiers did not dare to barge in and shouted outside the camp commander's tent. Ning Jing had no choice but to grab Mu Ling and forcefully cover her mouth. It's nothing. Mu Ling just had a nightmare. It's nothing. After saying this, Mu Ling pulled Ning Jing's hand and continued. Chapter 986. Mu Linger grabbed Ning Jing and kept screaming. She didn't care what time it was or where she was. She just wanted to scream and go crazy. She wanted to announce to the world that Chi brother cared about her and that Chi brother had her in his heart. Ning Jing, you're the happiest person in the world. Mu Ling hugged Ning Jing's arms. She was so happy that she couldn't calm down. Ning Jing, don't you agree? Don't you agree? Yes. How could Ning Jing say, no? At this time, even if she said, no, Mu Ling wouldn't listen. Ning Jing, I'm as happy as you are. You're also the happiest person in the world. Mu Ling laughed. Ning Jing felt helpless at first. However, she didn't know why, but when she heard Mu Ling's excited voice, she was infected. Yes, the happiest thing in the world was when the person you loved also loved you. Ning Jing, we must leave this place alive. We must. Mu Ling said seriously. We will. Ning Jing said firmly. Ning Jing, do you think Chi brother will hug me if he finds me? Hug me tightly? Mu Ling asked seriously. Ning Jing didn't know if he would. She wasn't familiar with Gu and couldn't see through him. She only felt that Mu Ling was silly. However, only silly people could be truly happy, right? Mu Ling thought for a while and asked shyly, Ning Jing, do you think Chi brother will kiss me? Ning Jing almost laughed out loud. She held it in and nodded. I think so. Regardless of whether Mu Ling would be disappointed in the future, at least, she was happy now. At least, she was once happy. Just like that, Mu Ling kept asking Ning Jing silly questions, and Ning Jing gave her affirmation. Ning Jing couldn't fall asleep at first. She wanted to talk to Mu Linger about Tang Li, but she ended up talking about Gu the whole night. Could this be considered a secret conversation between sisters? When it was almost dawn, the two of them fell asleep while giggling sweetly. How great would it be if she could always be this happy? Ning Cheng didn't sleep the entire night. Even now, his eyes were still open and he wasn't sleepy at all. Bai Yuqiao took advantage of the time when Jun Yixie was in the military training ground to look for Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng, do you have any plans? Bai Yuqiao asked. What plans do you want me to have in one night? Ning Cheng asked back. Even though he was more anxious than Bai Yuqiao, he still maintained his composure. Bai Yuqiao knew that she was being too hasty, but she couldn't help but be anxious. Jun Yixie had already interrogated Su Xiaoyu once. If he went a second time, it was hard to guarantee that he would torture her. Su Xiaoyu's body was so weak, and she had only recovered a little in the past few days. She didn't dare to imagine what would happen if she was tortured again. Ning Cheng, help me think of a way. Take it that I'm begging you. Bai Yuqiao hesitated for a moment and simply said, Ning Cheng, you and my senior brother are just working together to achieve your own goals. What do you want? Just say it. Ning Cheng had been waiting for Bai Yuqiao to say this, but he didn't expect her to be so anxious. Bai Yuqiao's words proved that Su Xiaoyu's position in her heart was higher than Jun Yixie's. In this way, it would be easier for him to state his conditions. Help me send a letter to Kangon Bank first. Once it's done, I'll tell you the fastest way to save her, Ning Cheng said in a low voice. All right. Bai Yuqiao agreed. She never thought that Kangon Bank was one of Long Fei Ye's businesses. She had heard of the cooperation between Kangon Bank and Myriad Merchant Hall and thought that Ning Cheng was probably trying to raise money. Ning Cheng immediately went to write the secret letter. Bai Yuqiao was very sensible and didn't follow him to read it. After Ning Cheng finished writing the secret letter, he sealed it and wrote a line of words on the seal. In this way, as long as the letter was opened and resealed, the line of words would not be neat. Deliver the letter and bring back the reply sealed by Manager Luo of Heaven and Earth Bank, Ning Cheng requested. All right. Bai Yuqiao agreed as usual. She was about to leave when Ning Cheng asked, Bai Yuqiao, aren't you afraid that I'll destroy your senior brother? Bai Yuqiao believed that Ning Cheng liked Han Yunxi and also believed that Ning Cheng would hand over the world to her senior brother for Han Yunxi. However, she also knew that once Ning Cheng had the chance, he would want both the woman and the world. She was Ning Cheng's chance. Bai Yuqiao had already thought of all these things when she decided to come to him for help. With her back facing Ning Cheng, she didn't turn around and said indifferently, Ning Cheng, I only have two conditions. First, rescue Su Xiaoyu within half a month. Second, don't harm my senior brother's life. As for how to rescue him, we'll discuss it in detail when I get Manager Luo's reply. Ning Cheng's lips curled into a sneer. All right, I'll wait for you. I'll arrange for someone to deliver it. He wanted to thank Ning Jing for her reminder yesterday. If Ning Jing hadn't mentioned Kangon Bank yesterday, he wouldn't have known where to deliver the secret letter. If it hadn't been for Kangon Bank, based on the two conditions that Bai Yuqiao had just mentioned, she might not have agreed so readily. Before he sent Ning Jing and the others away, he wouldn't help Bai Yuqiao. As for Jun Yixie, he couldn't do it without harming his life. Even if he were to die, he would drag Jun Yixie down with him. After Bai Yuqiao delivered the secret letter to Kangon Bank, he wouldn't have any more worries. Bai Yuqiao wouldn't have any bargaining chips to negotiate with him. That night, Ning Cheng found an opportunity to ask Bai Yuqiao to arrange for him to meet Su Xiaoyu. Su Xiaoyu was already asleep. He glanced at Su Xiaoyu from afar, then turned to leave. Little girl, I'm going to have to trouble you. You have to be strong and hold on. Ning Cheng's banknotes were currently changing hands in the company. Ning Cheng's secret letter had been sent by Bai Yuqiao to the only Kangon Bank branch in Northern Li. As for Han Yunxi, they were on their way to the three-way black market. At this time in the three-way black market, in the Myriad Merchant Palace, the fifth elder who was loyal to Han Yunxi had already been placed under house arrest. The fifth elder was too honest. Although he was angry after receiving Ning Cheng's letter, He still gave the letter to the Great Elder and had the Great Elder announce it to the Council of Elders. The other 4 elders of the Council of Elders all agreed to give the letter to the army, letting the army prepare to receive the 30,000 battle horses. At the same time, they had to prepare to go to war with East Qin. The 5th elder's strength alone couldn't stop them at all. Although Ning Cheng's letter didn't explicitly say that the D clan was cooperating with Jun Yixie, the 30,000 battle horses heading south made everyone mistakenly think that Ning Cheng was cooperating with Jun Yixie. At this moment, the entire D clan was preparing to go to war. The elders of Myriad Merchant Hall knew that Han Yunshi would cut off their source of income, but they didn't fear it. They were already prepared to sacrifice all of the D clan's businesses and properties to support the army. They were waiting for Ning Cheng's letter and Ning Cheng's orders. Then they could go to war at any time. Now that the situation had escalated, Han Yunshi's group had no time to search for the perplexing butterfly illusion. They hurried on their way until a few nights later, they secretly arrived at the 3-way black market. Meanwhile, Manager Luo of Kangon Bank was waiting for Long Fei Yi at East Origin Hall. To stop the cooperation between Kangon Bank and Myriad Merchant Hall's auction houses, Long Fei Yi only needed to give the order. Manager Luo could show himself in the black market that very night, and the news would spread like wildfire by tomorrow. This would be a blow to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium, not just the auction houses, but many other businesses as well. Everyone would fear Kangon Bank, which was why they refused to cooperate with Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. After all, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium was no longer what it used to be. Of course, if news of this reached Jun Yixie's ears, Jun Yixie would immediately question Ning Cheng's wealth. Your Highness, this subordinate has already made the necessary preparations. Myriad Merchant Hall's auction houses are holding a special auction tonight, so the venue is huge, Manager Luo said. Long Fei Yi glanced at Han Yunshi, whose gaze was complicated. She had never planned to make an enemy of the D clan, much less hope that they would treat her as one. She had no idea why things had come to this either. Or perhaps it was more accurate to say that she had no idea why things had come to this between her and Ning Cheng. It wasn't that she wanted to start a war, but that the D clan was itching to make a move. She had cut off Myriad Merchant Hall's source of income not as a show of force, but as a way to tie them down and delay Ning Cheng from starting a war. Han Yunshi had no idea how much effort Ning Cheng had put into Sky River City, much less how much trouble her decision today would bring to Ning Cheng. It might even lead to an irreversible situation. Han Yunshi didn't say a word beyond nodding. Seeing Han Yunshi nod, Long Fei Yi nodded to Manager Luo as well. This subordinate understands. I'll do it immediately, Manager Luo respectfully withdrew. Gu crossed his legs and asked, when will Tang Li arrive? What are you planning to do? Han Yunshi asked. When he arrives, we'll kill our way to Sky River City with him. Gu narrowed his long, narrow eyes. They were devilishly beautiful and ruthless. Poison Girl, you guys fight your battles. Tang Li and I will save our people. Let's see who kills Jun Yixie and Ning Cheng first. Han Yunshi rolled her eyes at him. Go die yourself. Don't drag Tang Li down with you. Jun Yixie's martial arts weren't as good as theirs, but with hostages in hand, there were bound to be all kinds of ambushes. Long Fei Yi's men couldn't even get close to the center of the Sky River barracks. If Gu and Tang Li tried to force their way in, they might end up as hostages again. Besides, Gu couldn't leave now. If Tang Li heard what he said, what if Tang Li was eager to save his wife and rushed in alone? Wouldn't he suffer a great loss? Speaking of Tang Li really came. Tang Li brought a secret letter with a serious expression. Brother, guess what this is? Who is it for? Where did it come from? Long Fei Yi asked. Tang Li held up the secret letter for everyone to see. Everyone immediately saw the signature on the letter. Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng? Where did you get this letter from? Who is this letter for? Han Yunshi asked anxiously. Could it be a blackmail letter sent by Ning Cheng? Ning Jing and Mu Ling were in Ning Cheng's hands. Ning Cheng hadn't blackmailed them yet. There was no doubt that he wanted to keep them as a hostage. Unexpectedly, Tang Li said something that shocked everyone even more. He said, This letter is from Ning Cheng to Manager Luo of Kangon Bank. It was sent by Urgent Eagle from the Northernly branch. I bumped into the messenger at the door and brought it in. What is Ning Cheng trying to do? Ning Cheng didn't know about the relationship between Kangon Bank and Long Fei Yi. Could it be that Ning Jing and Mu Ling had a slip of the tongue? Or maybe he had a favor to ask of Kangon Bank. That's strange. Long Fei Yi opened the letter quickly. When he saw the contents, his expression changed drastically. He exclaimed, "Quick, go stop Steward Luo." "What's going on?" Gu Beiyue couldn't help but ask. Long Fei Yi didn't have time to answer. He got up and went out personally. Would he be able to stop him in time? Chapter 987. Shopkeeper Luo didn't go to the auction alone. He brought 2 attendants with him. At this moment, he was already sitting in a private room on the 2nd floor of Myriad Merchant Hall's largest auction hall. He was waiting for the auction to end, before everyone dispersed, to reveal his identity and publicly announce the termination of his partnership with Myriad Merchant Hall. From then on, Kangon Bank would no longer accept any loans from the auction hall's guests. Just this one sentence was enough for everyone to make all sorts of guesses. There was no need for further explanation. And the more guesses there were, the more ridiculous they were, and the greater the blow to Myriad Merchant Hall. In the business world, there was no such thing as offering help in a time of need. It was either icing on the cake or adding insult to injury. Looking at the heated scene below, shopkeeper Luo remained calm and waited patiently. The auction had ended, and everyone was cheering for the winner. Shopkeeper Luo rubbed his hands together, then finally stood up to leave. Unexpectedly, someone pressed down on his shoulder from behind. Shopkeeper Luo was shocked. He turned around and saw his 2 attendants kneeling. The man pressing down on his shoulder was masked. His brows were stern, but he didn't lose his heroic spirit. "Go back." The man left these 2 words, then turned and left, quickly disappearing from sight. Shopkeeper Luo immediately recognized his master's voice. Although he was puzzled, he didn't dare delay and immediately rushed back with his 2 attendants. When Long Fei Yi returned to East Origin Hall, Han Yunxi and the others were all anxiously waiting for him. Since Long Fei had shown up in person, who could possibly catch up to his speed? If Gu Beiyue had recovered his shadow art, then he could. But Gu and Long Fei Yi still hadn't found the medicinal pills. The secret letter had been taken away by Long Fei Yi. They still didn't know what Ning Cheng wrote in the letter to shopkeeper Luo, or why Long Fei Yi was in such a hurry to stop shopkeeper Luo. However, since Long Fei Yi had stopped shopkeeper Luo, it meant that the situation in Northernly had taken a turn for the better. The situation wasn't serious enough for Kangon Bank to step in. Seeing that Long Fei Yi had returned, Han Yunxi quickly asked, "Did you stop him?" "Your Highness, what happened in Northernly?" Gu Beiyue asked anxiously. "I did." Long Fei Yi took off his mask and handed the secret letter to Han Yunxi. Gu Beiyue, Gu, and Tang Li all came over. When they read the contents of the secret letter, they were all equally shocked. Other than shock, there was still more shock. Ning Cheng had written everything clearly. When Han Yunxi wasn't around and Ning Jing was mentioned, Tang Li withered. If it was before, although he was very fond of Ning Jing, he would still be very vigilant when it came to important matters. However, since he knew that Ning Jing was pregnant, he didn't have any immunity towards Ning Jing. As long as it was related to Ning Jing, he would believe it. If this is a trap, it won't fool us for long. It's unnecessary. Ning Cheng isn't that stupid, Gu Beiyue seriously said. Everyone looked towards Long Fei Yi. It was useless for Han Yunxi and Gu Beiyue to believe. The key was for Long Fei Yi to believe. This was because Ning Cheng's letter could be considered a rescue letter. He wanted Long Fei Yi to help him, cooperate with him, and join forces with him. Everyone waited. Other than being nice to Han Yunxi, Long Fei Yi had always been hostile towards the entire Western Qin camp, especially towards Ning Cheng. He had enough power to deal with the D clan, and he also had enough strength to deal with Jun Yixie and the Northern Dynasty's emperors. He didn't have to work with the D clan. All he needed was time. Han Yunxi hesitated for a moment. Just as she was about to speak, Long Feiyi muttered to himself, "The Black Clan? Jun Yixie, that brat really hit it well. Let's join forces with Ning Cheng. Let him fight with the Northern Dynasty's emperors." Han Yunxi quickly agreed. Seeing that things were going well, Gu Beiyue also quickly said, "Fortunately, Your Highness stopped them in time. Otherwise, once Kangon Private Bank and Myriad Merchant Hall cancelled their cooperation, Jun Yixie wouldn't be able to get military pay from Ning Cheng. Not only would Ning Cheng be in danger, the D clan would be in danger, even Mu Ling and Ning Jing would be in great danger. Now, all of their safety was tied to the same boat. Whether this boat would capsize or not, it was up to Long Feiyi to decide. As for Long Feiyi, he had already made up his mind when he chose to stop them at the first moment. Long Feiyi, whether it's East Qin or Western Qin, let's find by Yanqing and Jun Yixie to settle the debt of the Great Qin Empire. Han Yunxi said. Finally, Long Feiyi nodded and said, "Spring next year is a good time." If their alliance with Ning Cheng succeeded, they could hide it from Jun Yixie and let Jun Yixie and the Northern Dynasty's emperors fight for 3 months. When spring comes next year, the Eastern and Western Qin armies would be able to march north. Then, they would definitely be able to defeat both Jun Yixie and the Northern Dynasty's emperors. By that time, the D clan would have already tamed those 30,000 warhorses. They would use those 30,000 warhorses as the vanguard and give Jun Yixie a good slap in the face. It's a good time. Han Yunxi was overjoyed. Gu Beiyue's anxious heart also relaxed. If not for Ning Cheng's plan to deal with Jun Yixie and the hostages in Sky River City, Gu Beiyue was worried that Long Feiyi would refuse to cooperate with Ning Cheng. 3 months, that's enough time to look for the fire and metal of 10,000 poisons, Gu muttered to himself. If Long Feiyi and Han Yunxi didn't deal with the D clan, then the matter of the perplexing butterfly illusion and the poison sect would naturally come first. All right. Long Feiyi gave an affirmative answer. He and the D clan still had to put on a show or two. Otherwise, with Jun Yixie's personality, he might not trust Ning Cheng. As for the small matters, he could leave them to his subordinates. There was no need for him and Han Yunxi to show their faces. He and Han Yunxi still had to deal with by Yanqing. Unless absolutely necessary, Long Feiyi wouldn't expose their whereabouts. "Brother, does that mean I won't be able to see Ning Jing until next spring?" Tang Li was anxious. After Gu confirmed that Mu Ling wasn't in any danger, he basically stopped caring about her. Long Fei glanced at him. "Your wife's uncle will take good care of his nephew. You better behave yourself." If Tang Li tried to force his way in, he would definitely fall into a trap. At this time, he didn't want anyone to provoke Jun Yixie. When next spring came and he personally led his troops to fight, he would definitely settle all his old debts with Jun Yixie. Han Yunxi, on the other hand, was worried about Mu Ling and Su Xiaoyu. The fact that Su Xiaoyu was Bai Yuqiao's little sister was really out of her expectations. But she couldn't be impulsive. Although they didn't need Ning Cheng to tell them that Mu Ling and Ning Jing had been kidnapped and taken to Tianhe City, Jun Yixie didn't know about the situation. Jun Yixie must be feeling smug right now, thinking that they didn't know about Mu Ling and Su Xiaoyu's whereabouts. The more this was the case, the more they wanted Jun Yixie to feel smug. It would be easier for Ning Cheng to do things on his side without arousing suspicion. Thanks to Ning Cheng's timely secret letter, a trade war and a war had been silently avoided. Han Yunxi wasn't stupid enough to use Ning Cheng's letter to convince Myriad Merchant Hall's Council of Elders. In any case, without Ning Cheng's orders, no matter how restless the D clan was, no one would dare to make a move. As long as they didn't make a move, everything would be safe. Ning Cheng's banknotes would definitely flow to Myriad Merchant Hall. Or perhaps, Ning Cheng would find a way to send a secret letter to Myriad Merchant Hall. At that time, Myriad Merchant Hall's elders would come to find her to take command of the army and discuss how to cooperate with the East Qin army. Waiting was what they needed to do now. While they waited, they couldn't be idle. There was the matter of the perplexing butterfly illusion, the poison sect, and her dual cultivation with Long Feiyi. Nothing could be delayed. Really, They were very busy. Han Yunxi was about to put the letter away when Long Feiyi inadvertently caught sight of a line of words on the back of the letter. He frowned and asked, "What's that?" Han Yunxi flipped it over and froze. Chapter 988. Han Yunxi flipped the letter over and saw that Ning Cheng had written a single line of words. It didn't reveal any useful information, but seemed to be a form of bargaining with Long Feiyi. Ning Cheng wanted Long Feiyi to loosen some of the restrictions imposed by the South Central Region's Commander-in-Chief's estate on merchants, as well as lower the taxes on them. Otherwise, not only would he refuse to cooperate with Long Feiyi, he'd encourage Jun Yi-Xie to ally with the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Moreover, he wouldn't allow Ning Jing's child to be born. Han Yunxi gave a start and almost tore the letter to shreds. Even she was angry, to say nothing of Long Feiyi. It was already difficult for the two sides to cooperate, but Ning Cheng still wanted to threaten Long Feiyi at a time like this. The South Central Region's Commander-in-Chief's estate had indeed dealt a heavy blow to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's businesses. It was also the root cause of their decline over the past few years. Han Yunxi could admit that Long Feiyi's original regulations were meant to restrict Cloud Realm Trade Consortium, but they were too harsh. Since both sides wanted to work together, Ning Cheng could make any demands without reproach. Whether he agreed or not could be negotiated. But Ning Cheng couldn't use Ning Jing's child to threaten Long Feiyi. This was abominable. Did Ning Jing know about this? How miserable would she feel if she did? What did he write? Long Feiyi urged. Han Yunxi dearly wanted to hide the truth, but she knew that she couldn't fool Long Feiyi. She could only hand the letter over. When Long Feiyi read the line, his face turned gloomy. Cold, he asked, "Threatening me?" "Threatening you?" On the side, Tang Li quickly picked up the letter. It would have been better if he didn't read it, because he immediately lost his temper. "Bastard! I'm going to settle accounts with him right now." "What is it?" Han Yunxi pulled Tang Li back in time. Gu Beiyue and the others also saw the line of words. They looked at each other in surprise. "Brother, let's just kill our way over. Let's destroy the D clan first, then head north and kill our way up." Tang Li was furious. If Ning Cheng was in front of him, he would definitely use the hundreds of hidden weapons he had on him to kill Ning Cheng. Gu Beiyue did not say anything. He had seen through the whole matter in an instant. Ning Cheng made such a request at this time because he didn't want to become Long Feiyi's subordinate after cooperating with Long Feiyi. If he could use this chance to threaten Long Feiyi into lifting the ban and lowering taxes, then many of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's businesses would be able to make a fortune during the chaos of war. Cloud Realm Trade Consortium would then be able to recover its strength and make a comeback within 2 to 3 years. Once Cloud Realm Trade Consortium turned the tables around, the D clan would have more money and more confidence. At that time, even if the princess and Long Feiyi got together, the D clan would still only serve the princess instead of Long Feiyi. In a way, Gu Beiyue envied both Ning Cheng and Ning Cheng. Gu Beiyue owed the Long Feiyi too much that he'd never be able to repay in this lifetime. Thus, he had to be respectful and courteous to the Long Feiyi while pledging his loyalty to the princess. Ning Cheng was different. If Ning Cheng could seize this chance to turn things around, then Ning Cheng would still be able to stand in front of Long Feiyi in the future. Meanwhile, the D clan would become the princess's shield, one that wouldn't be restricted by Long Feiyi or East Qin. Gu Beiyue would only hide these thoughts in his heart without saying a word. He glanced at Han Yunxi, unsure if she'd thought of all these things, but it seemed like she was still angry over Ning Jing's child. Ning Cheng was too smart. He didn't use Mu Ling or Ning Jing, but Ning Jing's child. That wouldn't threaten Long Feiyi, but it could threaten Tang Li to death. Once Tang Li was threatened, Long Feiyi would be in trouble. Besides Han Yunxi, Tang Li was probably Long Feiyi's greatest weakness. Long Feiyi didn't answer Tang Li, but looked at Han Yunxi instead. "What do you think?" Han Yunxi didn't answer immediately. She calmed down and thought it over. In the end, she said, "Long Feiyi, perhaps Ning Cheng isn't threatening you, but he has no other choice. This is the only way to protect the D clan." Back at 100 Poison's sect, The reactions of the D clan's military and Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's elders had made Han Yunshi realize this problem. If she and Long Feiyi were together, the D clan would continue to be loyal to her. When East and West Qin joined forces in the future, the Eastern and Western Qin factions would fight for power and influence. There would definitely be internal strife. She thought these problems were still too far away, but she didn't expect Ningcheng to start fighting for the D clan at this time. These old foxes are all meticulous and thoughtful. They're not simple at all. What are you planning to do? Long Feiyi asked next. Han Yunshi cleverly replied, Long Feiyi, you won't be afraid of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium if they make a comeback one day, right? Long Fei's ugly expression suddenly improved as he broke into a smile. Han Yunshi, he said, you're even flattering me? Han Yunshi grinned back. I'm speaking the truth. Alright, I'll give the D clan this chance. Long Feiyi immediately had someone bring over a brush and paper to write down a promise. As long as Ningcheng could accomplish this, he'd have the South Central Region's Commander-in-Chief's estate lift the restrictions against Cloud Realm Trade Consortium and reduce their taxes. Long Feiyi was only worried about Ningcheng's threat. He really wasn't afraid of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium making a comeback. Actually, if the D clan was wholeheartedly loyal to Han Yunshi, he wouldn't mind helping Cloud Realm Trade Consortium make a comeback. Cloud Realm Trade Consortium had plenty of business geniuses that he cherished very much. Even Han Yunshi was surprised that Long Feiyi agreed so easily, to say nothing of Gu Beiyue and the rest. After Long Feiyi finished writing the promise, Han Yunshi personally wrote a letter in reply to Ningcheng's offer of cooperation. While Long Feiyi wasn't paying attention, she secretly apologized for hurting Ningcheng's eyes with her needles. Manager Luo chose an envelope specially made for Kangon Private Bank and wrote a line of words on the seal before sending it back to Northern Li's private bank by Eagle. With that, the matter had come to an end. With everything settled, the silent Gu suddenly spoke up. This brother of Ningcheng's, he's not bad. Let's be friends later. Gu might seem like a jokester, but he wasn't easy to get along with. Aside from Gu Beiyue, who else had he considered his brother? He remembered how he'd disliked Ningcheng back in the Imperial Palace. Why had his attitude changed so much? Tang Li couldn't stand it any longer and asked coldly, "What's that?" It wasn't clear whether he was cursing Ningcheng or Gu. Gu assumed that he was cursing Ningcheng. Anyone who dares to threaten a certain person is a real man. This old man likes it. As soon as Gu finished speaking, the teacup in Long Feiyi's hands flew at him. Gu quickly dodged out of the way. Long Feiyi sat lazily in his seat, but slowly raised a hand. Gu could clearly feel a powerful aura closing in on him. He was secretly alarmed. Long Feiyi had only been here for a few days, but his internal energy had grown so much. Could this be the power of the Lust Bite energy? Gu Qishao was about to test the strength of the Lust Bite energy when Han Yunshi cut him off. Gu, she asked, didn't you have any news about the fire of 10,000 poisons before? Leaving matters in Northern Li to Ningcheng for the time being, they needed to find all the ingredients for the perplexing butterfly illusion as soon as possible. Otherwise, no matter how well they arranged everything, they wouldn't be able to withstand Bai Yanqing's interference. These 3 months were very important. Long Feiyi didn't bother to argue with Gu over the perplexing butterfly illusion. He asked coldly, "What about the metal of 10,000 poisons? How did you find it before?" Gu became excited at the mention of the perplexing butterfly illusion. He said, "I really don't have any news about the fire of 10,000 poisons. I've heard of the metal of 10,000 poisons before, but I don't know if it's trustworthy." "What is it?" Long Feiyi hurriedly asked. "The 7 fiends." Gu became serious. "The 7 fiends? Stars?" Han Yunshi blurted out. The 7 fiends she knew were also called the 7 kills. They were stars in numerology, cruel and inauspicious. Gu Qishao gave Han Yunshi a disdainful look before he replied, "It's a dagger, one that's been cursed. It's said that anyone who is stabbed by this dagger will be cursed. No matter where they are stabbed, they will bleed from their 7 orifices and die. That's why the dagger has the inauspicious name of the 7 fiends." Gu had heard of this a few years ago. He had been thinking about the metal of 10,000 poisons and the fire of 10,000 poisons recently, and suddenly remembered this. In the 5 elements, metal did not refer specifically to gold, but to all metals. No matter whether the 7 Fiends' dagger was made of black gold, black iron, or bronze, they would all be metals. Han Yunxi was very surprised. She did not expect such a magical weapon to exist. She said, "You suspect that this dagger is poisoned? So the person who was stabbed was not actually cursed, but poisoned to death?" Gu nodded. Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue did not say anything, but they also agreed with this view. Everyone was engrossed in the discussion. Long Fei Yi immediately ordered people to gather all the rumors about the 7 Fiends' dagger. Tang Li was the only one left, quiet and unhappy as he sat on the side, thinking about his Jing Jing. In the next few days, Han Yunxi and the others waited for news from Myriad Merchant Hall while tracking down the whereabouts of the 7 Fiends. They found out that the 7 Fiends had appeared in a water city in Jiangnan. They made a plan to bring Myriad Merchant Hall to understand the truth. After finding them, they did not immediately set off to find the 7 Fiends after settling matters in the black market. If Ning Cheng had mentioned the matter of being poisoned, perhaps Han Yunxi and the others' plans would have changed. Perhaps they would not have left the three-way land so easily and headed south. Unfortunately, Ning Cheng had mentioned everything in his letter except for the matter of him being poisoned. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi's reply quickly passed through Kangon Bank and into the hands of Bai Yuqiao's people. As soon as Bai Yuqiao received the letter, she glanced at the seal to make sure it had not been opened. That night, she immediately found an opportunity to deliver it to Ning Cheng. She was quite patient. She waited for Ning Cheng to read the secret recipe and put it away before speaking. "I've taken care of the matter. Is Master Ning satisfied?" "Not bad." Ning Cheng was not stingy with his praise. Bai Yuqiao inwardly let out a sigh of relief. "Then let's discuss the matter of saving little Yu." Unexpectedly, Ning Cheng replied with 2 words. "There's no hurry." Bai Yuqiao's expression immediately changed. "Ning Cheng, what do you mean? Help me deliver a few more letters and we'll talk." Ning Cheng was too cold and indifferent. "You're going back on your word." "What do you want?" Bai Yuqiao was furious. "You can refuse, but I guarantee that you won't see Su Xiaoyu tomorrow." Ning Cheng sneered. Bai Yuqiao was stunned and couldn't help but shudder. She belatedly realized that Ning Cheng was a wolf, a vicious wolf. How could she have been so careless as to cooperate with him? Now that Ning Cheng had something on her, he was trying to threaten her instead of sincerely helping her save people. Chapter 989. Looking at Ning Cheng's cold and malicious face, Bai Yuqiao regretted her past actions. If she was not afraid that little Yuer would be tortured again, she would not be so impulsive. Without Ning Cheng saying anything, she knew that Ning Cheng would not let go of such a useful messenger like her. Now, not only would she not be able to save little Yuer as soon as possible, she would also fall into the situation of being controlled by others. Ning Cheng, Su Xiaoyu is Han Yunxi's most beloved servant girl. If anything happens to her, you won't be able to explain it to Han Yunxi. Bai Yuqiao said angrily. "She already has." Ning Cheng snorted coldly. "You." Bai Yuqiao was speechless. She narrowed her eyes at Ning Cheng and questioned, "What exactly do you want to do? What do I have to do to make you willing to help me?" Previously, the situation was very urgent and the situation was not clear. However, after he received the replies from Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi, everything became clear. He already knew what he wanted to do, but he did not need to tell Bai Yuqiao. Only a messenger who did not know anything was the safest and most useful messenger. Ning Cheng only told Bai Yuqiao, "You, me, and Su Xiaoyu are all in the same boat. If one suffers, the other suffers. As long as you help me settle this matter, I guarantee that Su Xiaoyu will not die." "What do you have to guarantee me?" Bai Yuqiao was both angry and probing. "You don't have to believe me." Ning Cheng shrugged indifferently. Bai Yuqiao clenched her hands tightly and wished she could take action. However, she could not. She was already in Ning Cheng's hands. She only had 2 choices. Either she cooperated with Ning Qing to the end, or she perished together with him. Bai Yuqiao took a deep breath and released her clenched fists. All right, Master Ning, please tell me what you need. Ning Qing wrote a secret letter and sealed it in the same way. After ensuring that Long Fei Yi would not attack Myriad Merchant Hall, he did not need to be so vigilant against Bai Yuqiao. He did not need to beat around the bush and could deliver the letter directly. He said, "Send this letter to Grand Elder of Myriad Merchant Hall in Three-Way Black Market." He did not know whose hands his banknotes had flowed to. Now that someone was delivering a letter, it was more appropriate to write a letter and deliver it directly. Bai Yuqiao took the letter and left the tent. She hesitated for a long time before deciding not to open it. She really did not understand what Ning Qing was trying to do. In her opinion, now that Han Yunxi had publicly reconciled with Long Fei Yi, Ning Qing would definitely not cooperate with Long Fei Yi. Now that Ning Qing was working with his senior brother and had second thoughts, how could he remain undefeated against the north and south flanks of senior brother and Long Fei? Bai Yuqiao pondered for a long time but still could not figure it out. Actually, she did not think highly of Ning Qing. However, she believed that Ning Qing would have a way to buy time for her and rescue Su Xiaoyu. Bai Yuqiao lowered her head and pondered as she walked out of the racecourse. Unfortunately, she ran into Jun Yixie walking towards her alone. Bai Yuqiao's heart skipped a beat. She was anxious to find a way to brush him off. It was so late and she had to leave the racecourse for something important. Who knew that Jun Yixie would only glance at her and walk past her? Bai Yuqiao was alarmed and was full of self-mockery. She must have a guilty conscience. Ever since she was young, her senior brother had never cared about her. He did not even bother to look at her. He would only pay attention to her when there was something important. Just now, she did not have to be afraid. Bai Yuqiao deliberately chased after Jun Yixie and pestered him as usual. "Senior brother, have you heard about what happened to Master?" Bai Yuqiao's words touched Jun Yixie's sore spot. He ignored her even more and walked very quickly. Not long after, his figure disappeared into the night. Jun Yixie had always been certain that Bai Yuqiao liked him. He was certain that Bai Yuqiao would betray the entire world rather than him. How could he have known that Bai Yuqiao would hook up with Ning Qing? That very night, Bai Yuqiao delivered Ning Qing's secret letter by Flying Hawk. But Ning Qing's banknotes arrived at Myriad Merchant Hall before the letter did. They flowed from the taverns to private banks, then to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's private bank. As soon as the people there saw the serial numbers on the banknotes, they knew that they belonged to Ning Qing. They immediately handed them over to Ning Nua, who was operating in Northern Li. As soon as Ning Nua received the banknotes, he shone them under the candlelight to reveal the secret message Ning Qing had written on the banknotes. Ning Qing didn't write much, but he explained a few important matters. Ning Nua hastened back to Three-Way Black Market on horseback. Currently, he had gathered the 5 elders of Myriad Merchant Hall and Cloud Realm Trade Consortium, as well as 3 of Ning Cheng's deputy generals from the Ning clan army. Everyone was gathered in a secret room in Myriad Merchant Hall to discuss matters. Ning Nua was usually sloppy and careless, but he wasn't careless when it came to important matters. After showing everyone the secret message on the banknotes, he asked seriously, "Shall we invite the princess back?" Ning Qing had sent out the banknotes long ago with only 3 instructions. The first was the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin. The second was that Ning Qing had been placed under house arrest by Jun Yixie, forcing them to cooperate with him, and the third was that the entire D clan had to obey Han Yunxi's orders. The elders and deputy generals of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium all sighed with emotion. They never expected or wanted to believe that the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin had been instigated by someone else. It was all a misunderstanding. They all lowered their heads, their expressions complicated. Back at 100 Poison's sect, they'd embarrassed Han Yunxi plenty. If they went to invite her back now, they'd be slapping their own faces. Myriad Merchant Hall's elders were all silent as well, but 5th elder, who'd just been released from house arrest, was very excited. "I'll go. If you guys don't have the face to admit your mistakes, I'll do it for you. I'll definitely bring the princess back. I told you, the princess wouldn't forget her roots for love." Every single one of you almost harmed the princess. No one knew what they were thinking. Instead of answering the fifth elder, Ning Nuwa asked, "Where are you going to find him?" That stopped fifth elder in his tracks. Ever since the incident at 100 Poison Sect, there had been many rumors about Long Fei Yi and Han Yunshi's whereabouts, but no one knew where they were. Fifth elder rubbed his nose resentfully and said, "Might as well send someone to the East Qin army to find them. They'll definitely know where the princess and Long Fei Yi are. Master Ning's trapped in Jun Yixie's hands. If we want to rescue her, we'll have to work with the Duke of Qin." At his words, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's head elder immediately spoke up. "What a joke! What does our D-Clan's savior have to do with Long Fei Yi? Find the princess and we'll talk things over with her." "Exactly. This is our D-Clan's own business. It has nothing to do with East Qin," someone from the military agreed. "But the princess has long allied with Long Fei Yi." Fifth elder refuted. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunshi's actions at 100 Poisons Sect had long been announced to the world that they were back together. Deputy General Shui was furious. "That's the princess's private business. We're talking about the D-Clan's business now." Fifth elder gave a start before he grew angry as well. "We're not talking about the D-Clan's business now, but Western Qin's. It's also the princess's business. If it's the D-Clan's private business, why did you invite the princess here? Why did Master Ning make us listen to the princess's arrangements?" Fifth elder grew agitated and slapped the table. "Now that things have come to this and Master Ning's already spoken, do you still want to rebel? You've all grown wings now that Master Ning isn't here. Old man is telling you now, you can rebel if you want, but don't even think about getting any military pay from Myriad Merchant Hall." As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place fell silent. Everyone looked towards Ning Na and the Grand Elder of Myriad Merchant Hall. Fifth Elder wasn't the one in charge of military pay, but these two. Fifth Elder immediately walked to Head Elder's side and said in a low voice, "Don't forget, Kangon Private Bank is only helping us because of the princess. As long as the princess says the word, the auction house's business can be ruined at any time. How long can the D-Clan last with the silver in the storehouse? Jun Yixie must have spared Master Ning's life for the sake of the money." Not only did Head Elder hear these words, but Ning Nuo as well. Although Fifth Elder was impulsive, his words weren't wrong. The D-Clan could cling to their own course now, but how long could they last? Half a year? A year? Who would clean up the mess if Myriad Merchant Hall couldn't take out the silver then? Even if Master Ning was saved, he'd be hard-pressed to move a single step in the chaos of war without any silver on hand. Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's elders and the Ning clan troops had no idea of Myriad Merchant Hall's financial crisis, which was why they were so arrogant. Both Ning Nuo and Head Elder were in a difficult position. They were very clear that the wisest choice under these circumstances was to use the princess and Long Fei Ye's relationship to cooperate with East Qin. But they were also worried that the Long Fei Yi would keep the D-Clan in check in the future. What to do? The secret meeting lasted until noon of the next day. Many people gradually approved of Fifth Elder, but there was also a group of people who insisted on defending the D-Clan's interests. Ning Cheng's silver banknotes only contained a few words, so why didn't he say more? Faced with this awkward situation, Ning Nuo rubbed his brows and realized that it wasn't easy being the head of a clan. Just as they were about to disperse, a page boy hurriedly delivered a secret missive. "It's from my big brother," Ning Nuo exclaimed. Everyone who'd risen to their feet was startled and sat back down. "Quick, see what it says? Is there a new development? Quick, take a look." Everyone was nervous and stuck in a stalemate. Ning Cheng's secret missive was like a timely rain in the rain. Ning Nuo's heart was filled with perilous waves after reading the contents, unable to calm down. This secret letter explained everything very clearly. "Young Master Nuo, just what did Master Ning say? Young Master Nuo, why don't you say something?" As everyone urged him on, Myriad Merchant Hall's head elder and fifth elder almost couldn't resist snatching the missive away. Ning Nuo recovered his wits, his tense face finally relaxing a little. "Master Ning and Long Fei Yi have finished discussing the terms of cooperation. The princess is waiting for us at East Origin Hall." "What?" Everyone was given a fright. Ning Nu's heart was still thumping wildly. He wanted to laugh, but couldn't bring himself to do so. East Origin Hall is East Qin's property, he said. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd instantly quieted down. Ning Nua continued, the Tang sect. Chapter 990. The Tang clan belongs to East Qin. Ning Nua's words silenced the crowd. Many of them, especially those from the trade consortium and the army, looked like they were about to collapse. Ning Nua continued, Kangon Private Bank is Long Fei Ye's private property. As soon as Ning Nua finished speaking, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's head elder abruptly clutched his chest and began pounding it with all his might. Fortunately, the people around him came to his aid in time, or else the pent-up anger in his heart would have taken his life. The others were all dumbfounded. They were so shocked that they couldn't move. They only felt that this was like a dream, an extremely terrifying dream. Ning Nua's heart was stifled as well, but he held on. My big brother and Long Fei Yi agreed that as soon as Jun Yi-Xie sends his troops north to start Northern Li's civil war, the South Central Region's Commander-in-Chief's estate will relax all sorts of restrictions on merchants and lower their taxes. Long Fei Yi agreed, and my big brother has his own handwritten letter. Ning Nua knew that if he didn't say this out loud, more people would end up like the head elder and stifle their own hearts. As expected, everyone exhaled in relief at his words, including fifth elder who'd always protected Han Yunxi. Long Fei Yi didn't add any other conditions? Did he really agree? Myriad Merchant Hall's head elder couldn't help asking. He was curious as to how Master Ning had managed to negotiate with Long Fei Yi. Honestly speaking, the D clan and Master Ning's circumstances didn't give them the confidence to propose such conditions to Long Fei Yi. Moreover, a shrewd man like Long Fei Yi should have noticed that Cloud Realm Trade Consortium had a good chance of making a comeback now that the South Central Region's restrictions had been lifted. Ning Nua shook his head and handed the letter to the head elder. Actually, he was very curious as to how Ning Cheng had negotiated with Long Fei Yi. After reading the letter, the head elder passed it down for everyone to read. It detailed everything that the silver drafts hadn't mentioned, as well as clear orders for the D clan. No one present dared to raise any objections. Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's head elder said seriously, if that's the case, then I'll leave the matters here to you all. We must hurry back to 10,000 Commerce Hall to make arrangements. There are many industries in the central and southern regions that need to be rebuilt, so we won't stay here any longer. Rushing back to make preparations and waiting for the ban to be lifted was one thing, but avoiding responsibility was another. This Grand Elder was truly afraid that Ning Nua would ask him to go to East Origin Palace to meet the princess. As soon as the Great Elder of the Chamber of Commerce said that he was leaving, the military's Deputy General Shui also hurriedly got up. Young Master Nura, there are still many details to be discussed regarding the acceptance of the warhorses. I will also take my leave first. However, Ning Nua said, the people from the Chamber of Commerce can leave first, but the people from the military must stay. Deputy General Shui, go and make preparations. Tonight, you will come with us to East Origin Palace to meet the princess. As for how to cooperate with the East Qin army, it's up to you to decide. Deputy General Shui felt his scalp go numb at the thought of meeting Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi. But since Ning Nua had spoken, he didn't dare to refuse. He could only accept the orders. Yes, this soldier understands. That night, Ning Nua only called for Myriad Merchant Hall's head elder and the military's Deputy General Shui to go with him to East Origin Palace. The fifth elder silently looked at their receding figures with a face full of disappointment. After experiencing all this, fifth elder was even more dissatisfied with certain members of the D clan. If Master Ning's letter hadn't come in time, those people would have tormented the D clan and the princess to the point of no return. He was planning to go tonight and find a chance to secretly warn the princess, but Ning Nua didn't let him go. As soon as Ning Nua's group reported their arrival, Su Donglin personally led the way to the rear courtyard. Fortunately, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi hadn't started dual cultivation yet. Otherwise, Ning Nua's group would have to wait until tomorrow. After leaving the Poison Sect's forbidden grounds, Han Yunxi began to cultivate in the poison storage space. As soon as she did, she sensed that Lil Thing had begun to cultivate as well. If Lil Thing was working so hard, she had to work even harder. Only when her cultivation in the poison storage space was higher than Bai Yanqing's could Lil Thing be safe. Only then could it help them fight against Bai Yanqing. At the same time, it could help Lil Thing's poison fangs recover faster. Ever since leaving the poison sect's forbidden grounds, she hadn't had time to rest after dual cultivating with Long Fei Yi every night. She would cultivate for more than 2 hours before she was willing to sleep. Then she would wake up early the next morning. She had been secretly preparing something because of her busy schedule, so she had to delay it. There were a few times when Long Fei Yi's heart ached when he saw her like this. After dual cultivating, he simply forced himself on Han Yunxi, tormenting her until she fell asleep. Every time this happened, Han Yunxi couldn't wake up early and unknowingly slept in until noon. Han Yunxi's mouth protested against Long Fei Yi's tyrannical method of forcing her to rest, but her body obediently submitted to him. Ning Nua's group was brought to a tea pavilion in the rear courtyard. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi sat around the tea table. Long Fei Yi had his head lowered as he brewed tea. Han Yunxi had been watching them from afar. Gu Beiyue sat behind Han Yunxi, also looking at them with a faint smile. Gu sat next to Gu Beiyue, leaning lazily against the railing with his legs crossed as he sized them up. Tang Li sat behind Long Fei Yi. He was also looking at them, his handsome face as dark as the dark clouds in the sky. Forget the head elder and Deputy General Shui. Even Ning Nuo felt a little guilty in the face of this scene. He was a little scared. He secretly rejoiced that Long Fei Yi wasn't looking at them. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to handle it. But as soon as he entered the pavilion, Long Fei Yi looked up. In this moment, Ning Nuo missed his big brother dearly. He knew that his big brother wouldn't have stage fright. He had a bit of friendship with Long Fei Yi back on Fishery Island, but things were different now. Although Ning Nuo was nervous, he was still able to keep his composure. He maintained his usual smile and bowed deeply to Han Yunxi. This subordinate, Ning Nuo, greets the princess. Seeing this, the nervous head elder and Deputy General Shui finally recovered their wits and hurriedly bowed as well. No need to be so courteous. Take a seat, Han Yunxi said mildly. Many thanks, princess. This subordinate will just stand. How could Ning Nuo dare to do that? Only Long Fei Yi and the princess were sitting at this table. Gu Beiyue and the rest were sitting behind them, so he didn't have the right to sit on the same level as the princess. Han Yunxi didn't insist. Instead, she had a servant arrange another chair for them, but didn't leave the head elder and Deputy General Shui behind. Once the three of them were seated, Han Yunxi said, "Since you're here, I'm sure you know about Ning Cheng's situation. Let's not waste any more time. There's still about 15 days before the warhorses arrive within Tianning's borders. What are the military's arrangements?" Han Yunxi looked towards Deputy General Shui, who was very surprised. He had been waiting for Han Yunxi to show him who was boss and question him about the 100 Poisons Sect incident. Who knew that Han Yunxi wouldn't mention a word about it, as if that incident had never happened. Ning Nuo secretly tugged at Deputy General Shui, who finally recovered his wits. He didn't have time to think about anything else and directly replied, "Master Ning's secret letter said that Jun Yixie has arranged for several horse trainers who know how to control beasts. This subordinate wants to make good use of these horse trainers." "How do you use them?" Han Yunxi asked. Deputy General Shui snuck a glance at Long Fei Yi. Jun Yixie will definitely believe the horse trainer's words. Jun Yixie had arranged for the horse trainers to come. 1. He hoped to control the warhorses, and 2. He'd sent a spy over. They only needed to beat him at his own game and make good use of these horse trainers. Then Jun Yixie would trust Ning Cheng even more. Ning Cheng had to keep Jun Yixie in check for 3 months and protect Ning Jing and the rest. This wasn't a small burden. If Jun Yixie suspected him in the slightest, all of his efforts would go to waste. Han Yunxi nodded, then asked, "Jun Yixie wants to use the Ning clan head to block the Great Qin army. What do you think?" "Princess, after 15 days, Master Ning will pay Jun Yixie's military pay as soon as the warhorses arrive. Jun Yi-xie plans to use 10 days to set up his plans and send troops north to attack the Northern Dynasty's emperors. This subordinate thinks that in these few days, the East Qin army can send out troops first and pretend to fight a few battles with the Ning clan army. Deputy General Shui replied. As long as the Eastern and Western Qin fought, Jun Yi-xie would trust Ning Qing even more. He betrayed the Western Qin and would also curry favor with Ning Qing. He needed Ning Qing to help him guard the south so that he could head north without any worries. All of this was actually Ning Qing's idea. Han Yunxi and the others had already thought of it. Han Yunxi threw out a sharp question. She said, "Who will win and who will lose in these battles?" There were always winners and losers in war, and when there were winners and losers, there would be gains and losses for one side. Long Fei did not make a sound, but when he heard this, his lips curled into a faint arc as he continued to drink his winter flakes. Deputy General Shui did not think as he seriously replied, "Princess, Jun Yi-xie is someone who has led troops before and those horse trainers are not simple. We can't hide it from their eyes." Han Yunxi lightly said, "Continue." The Ning clan army has lost. They have abandoned Qingyang County and retreated to Heong Pass. The Ning clan army has the red coat cannons and the weather is cold and snow. The East Qin army cannot break through Heong Pass, so the two armies are in a stalemate. Deputy General Shui seriously said. Han Yunxi felt admiration in her heart. Although this Deputy General Shui was rude to her at the 100 Poisons sect, now that they were truly working together, Deputy General Shui knew how to prioritize the army and was willing to abandon Qingyang County. At this time, Long Fei finally spoke. "How are we going to arrange the time?" Deputy General Shui was a bit surprised, but he remained calm as he replied, "We still need to coordinate with the Ning clan head. I wonder if East Qin can cooperate?" Only Ning Qing could grasp the situation on Jun Yi-xie's side. Han Yunxi glanced at Long Fei and was about to speak, but Long Fei readily agreed. "All right. This crown prince will have Bailey Qiu contact you later. He will cooperate with you." When he said this, Gu Beiyue on the side silently laughed. Long Fei was truly an old fox. Leaving this matter to Bailey Qiu was simply too suitable. When Long Fei and Han Yunxi worked together, the husband and wife were of the same mind. They both prioritized the overall situation and did not care about gains or losses. However, the forces under their command were different. Letting Bailey Qiu handle this matter was to test whether the Bailey army was still dissatisfied with the cooperation between Western Qin and Eastern Qin. Secondly, it was to restrict Deputy General Shui. Thirdly, it was to train the two armies in advance. After all, at the beginning of next spring, the two armies would work together and head north to northernly. Han Yunxi could see Long Fei's intentions. Although it was a cooperation, Ning Qing held the majority of the power. Both armies had to cooperate with Ning Qing's arrangements and make adjustments according to Ning Qing's decisions. To be more precise, Long Fei was threatened by Ning Qing this time. Not only did he not fight back, he even took a big step back. After Ning Nuo and the others left, Han Yunxi whispered to Long Fei, "Are you giving me and Tang Li face?" Chapter 991. Even Han Yunxi had to beg for mercy every time she threatened Long Fei, let alone the others. But this time Long Fei really gave in. Was this for the sake of Han Yunxi, the Western Qin princess, or for the sake of Tang Li's unborn child? Long Fei calmly replied to Han Yunxi, "For the sake of everyone in the world. I hope that next spring there will be no distinction between Eastern and Western Qin." This Deputy General Shui is much more adaptable than Bailey Qiu. Bailey Qiu should learn from him. The soldier has to be flexible. Han Yunxi stared at him for a long time. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled foolishly. Perhaps it was the truth of the Qin Empire's internal strife that made Long Fei feel more at ease with the Western Qin camp. Perhaps it was because Long Fei's heart had grown bigger and his eyes could see further. Han Yunxi not only saw the dominance and strength of a leader in him, but she also saw the magnanimity of a ruler. She hoped that the first real cooperation between the Eastern and Western Qin armies would go smoothly and happily. At this moment, Gu, who had been waiting impatiently, finally spoke. Everything here is settled. Can we set off tomorrow? They had to rush back before spring. Deducting the time spent on the road, they didn't have much time to find the Seven Demons' dagger. Before Han Yunxi could answer, Tang Li finally exploded. He stood up abruptly and said angrily, "I want to save Jing Jing." Ning Jing was almost 5 months pregnant. By spring, she would be 8 months pregnant. If Ning Cheng failed, what would happen to Ning Jing and the baby? Tang Li couldn't accept it, nor could he bear the risk. Han Yunxi knew how big the risk was, and so did everyone else. However, if he rashly tried to save them, or if the Tang sect did something, it would put Ning Jing in even more danger. "Brother, even if I have to give up the Tang sect, I want to save them," Tang Li said fiercely. However, Long Fei Yi struck a blow. Even if you give up the Tang sect, you might not be able to save them. If they barged in, they would be jumping into Jun Yixie's trap. If they didn't barge in, they would have to exchange the Tang sect's hidden weapons. How could Jun Yixie only ask for the secret weapon's secret recipe? They had to swallow the Tang sect. Furthermore, Ning's value. If Jun Yixie kept Ning Jing, not only would they be a long-term threat to the Tang sect, but they could also keep Cheng's safety. No matter how great the temptation was, Jun Yixie wouldn't let her go so easily. "Sect Master Tang, calm down. As long as Jun Yixie sends troops north, Ning Jing and Ling will be safe until at least next year. If you act rashly and affect Ning Cheng's arrangements, Ning Jing and Ling will be in danger." Gu Beiyue also comforted him. Once Jun Yixie sent troops, he would have to rely on Ning Cheng even more. He didn't dare to offend Ning Cheng. Seeing that everyone was persuading him, Gu also said, "Don't worry. Ning Cheng is a reliable man. He can't lose his sister and nephew, right?" Tang Li, who had been holding back for a few days, finally exploded. "Gu, are you fucking blind or deaf? Don't you know that Ning Cheng is threatening my brother with my child's life? Who knows what will happen at Tianhe? Who can be sure that he won't sacrifice Ning Jing? What won't he do for his bullshit mission and bullshit cause? Didn't he sacrifice Ning Jing when he let Ning Jing marry into the Tang sect? What right does he have to use my child as a bargaining chip? What right does he have? What right does he have?" Tang Li was angry and anxious. As he cursed, his eyes turned red. He didn't look like his usual sloppy and foppish self. Ning Jing must have never seen Tang Li like this. Would her heart ache if she saw him like this? Han Yunxi understood Tang Li's anger the best. She had seen Ning Jing's panic when she almost had a miscarriage. She knew how much Ning Jing had sacrificed to hide and protect this child. She pressed Tang Li's shoulder. Without consulting Long Fei Yi and the others, she made a prompt decision. "We'll wait. We'll wait until Jun Yixie sends his troops north. We're not far from Tianhe. If there's a change, we'll go all out." Tang Li didn't say anything. He turned around and hugged Han Yunxi. "Sister," he cried. Gu was speechless. He was caught off guard. Gu Beiyue looked away and sighed softly. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything. He just patted Tang Li's shoulder. He hadn't seen Tang Li cry for a long time. It had been so long that he forgot the last time Tang Li cried. When he was very young, Tang Li would always ask him when he cried, "Brother, why don't you cry? Brother, do you have a way to hide your tears? Please teach me. Brother, Auntie says that men are never allowed to cry. Does that mean I can't be a man?" In Long Fei Ye's eyes, Tang Li would always be a younger brother who never grew up. Soon, Long Fei Yi pulled Tang Li away from Han Yunxi's arms. He didn't say a word. Just like that, they, who were originally going to head south, secretly stayed in East Origin Palace. They kept an eye on the situation in Northern Li while keeping an eye on Bai Yanqing's news. Long Fei Yi sent a group of spies south to find out more about the Seven Fiends' daggers. After Bailey Qiu and Deputy General Xue exchanged 2 letters, the East Qin Army was the first to launch an attack on Xinjiang County. Ning Cheng didn't send any more letters, but he kept in touch with Myriad Merchant Hall. Under Tang Li's repeated requests, Han Yunxi personally asked Myriad Merchant Hall to take good care of Ning Jing when they wrote back to Ning Cheng. In fact, Tang Li's original words were, "Warn Ning Cheng that if anything happens to Ning Jing or the child, I won't let him off." Han Yunxi conveyed the words, "Take good care of the pregnant woman." Over the past few days, Han Yunxi had spent all her time cultivating the poison storage space besides her dual cultivation with Long Fei. As the intensity of her cultivation increased, her connection with Lil Thing grew stronger as well, but they still couldn't communicate with each other via telepathy. There was no news of Bai Yanqing at all. Everyone couldn't figure out what he was up to. Long Fei Yi didn't forget about another matter, and that was to investigate why Western Zhou's Emperor Kangxing had interfered with the 100 Poisons sect. He handed this matter over to Chu Tianyin to investigate. Gu couldn't sit still. He followed up on news of the 7 Fiends' daggers while helping Gu Beiyue find the dragon pill in the black market. Everyone hoped that Gu Beiyue's shadow arts would recover as soon as possible. If Gu Beiyue recovered, he would be a great help to Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi. Bailey Mingxiang also didn't idle around. She found a hidden garden in East Origin Hall and diligently cultivated. That afternoon, Han Yunxi found Bailey Mingxiang to teach her cooking skills, which was a rare opportunity for her to relax. Long Fei Yi called Gu over. Seeing this, Gu Beiyue also followed. Actually, Gu had been waiting for Long Fei Yi to settle the score with him. He knew why Long Fei Yi had sought him out alone. Seeing Gu Beiyue walk over, Gu shot a cold glance at Long Fei Yi, indicating for Long Fei Yi to send Gu Beiyue away. Unexpectedly, before Long Fei Yi could say anything, Gu Beiyue calmly said, "Seventh young master, how old are you?" Gu almost tripped. He turned his head to look at him. "What do you mean?" "There's something wrong with your blood. The little thing and I have long discovered it. I originally thought that you were a poisonous Gu human, but you're not," Gu Beiyue said seriously. When he and the little thing had discovered that there was something wrong with Gu's blood, he had suspected that Gu was an immortal poisonous Gu human. However, the records in the altar's secret room made him realize that he was wrong. There was a limited amount of poisonous Gu human fruits, which had long been eaten by Bai Yanqing. Back then, Gu Yuntian had only tested medicine for Gu, not poison. There was no possibility of coincidental cultivation. Therefore, Gu Beiyue still couldn't figure out what was going on with Gu's body. Long Fei Yi sized up Gu with interest. Gu felt uncomfortable all over. He said unhappily, "I don't know what the hell I am either. I also thought that I was a poisonous Gu human, but the records in the secret room said that poisonous Gu humans age. I seem to never age." There were many legends about poisonous Gu humans. They were immortal, and even invulnerable to weapons, injuries, and illnesses. They were also said to be immune to all kinds of poisons. Gu Beiyue had also mistakenly thought that they were immortal, but he only had a clear understanding after learning the truth in the secret room. Long Fei Yi had originally planned to figure out some other ways to deal with poisonous Gu humans from Gu, but it seemed like there was no hope now. He asked, "Does Gu Yuntian know?" Gu shook his head helplessly. Gu Beiyue said seriously, "Stay at my place for the next few days, and I'll take a look at you seriously. If it's not poison, then it's very likely to be medicine." Gu's hair stood on end for some reason. "How do you want to take a look?" Gu Beiyue smiled. "Don't be afraid. I'll just take your pulse and check your blood. Your blood is very special." Gu Qishao was still doubtful and didn't trust Gu Beiyue. Long Fei Yi didn't say much. He handed this matter to Gu Beiyue and was about to leave. However, Gu stopped him. "Long Fei Yi, how about I make a deal with you?" "Speak." Long Fei Yi didn't even turn around. How much did he not want to see Gu? "If one day we find out about the power that can kill the snow wolves, you help me find the perplexing butterfly illusion, and I'll help you find that power. How about it?" Gu said seriously. There was only one bottle of perplexing butterfly illusion, and it might be able to break his immortality. If he used it, he wouldn't even have the slightest hope. Long Fei Yi sneered. "On what basis?" "On the basis that I'll protect all of you unconditionally," Gu said loudly. He was about to go moldy in the three-way black market, but wasn't it all for the sake of everyone else and on guard against Bai Yanqing? However, Long Fei Yi said, "This is the price for not keeping your word. You can leave whenever you want." What he meant was that as soon as Gu left, Han Yunxi and the others would immediately find out about his immortality. Gu's face sank. Even after Long Fei Ye's figure had disappeared, his expression was still incomparably gloomy. Gu Beiwei smiled innocently and said, "Seventh young master, let's go." Gu actually liked Gu Beiwei's smile very much, but at this moment, he had goosebumps all over his body. Before Gu Beiwei could even walk over, he had already fled far away. Since Gu wasn't cooperating, this matter was covered up and delayed. Everyone busied themselves while waiting. On this day, a piece of shocking news came from Northern Li. Gu was originally lying on the roof, basking in the sun. When he heard Han Yunxi and the others talking about this in the courtyard, he immediately rolled off the roof and fell flat on his face. Chapter 992. Mu Ling-er was pregnant. The news from Northern Li was that Mu Ling-er was pregnant. Gu crawled up from the ground and asked in disbelief, "Whose seed is it? Didn't Mu Ling-er revolve around him all the time? She even talked about Chi brother and Chi brother every day. How could she change her mind so quickly and get together with someone else? Wasn't this too fast?" When Gu asked this, Han Yunxi, Long Fei Yi, Gu Beiwei and the rest all looked at him with strange expressions. Gu looked at them in bewilderment. He didn't know what was going on, but he suddenly panicked. "But why are you all looking at me?" he asked timidly. Everyone didn't say anything and just stared at him. The more silent everyone was, the more flustered Gu became. "Poison girl, say something." Han Yunxi didn't say anything, but she slowly narrowed her eyes and a murderous aura gradually appeared. Everyone else's expressions also changed. Long Fei Yi looked disdainful, Gu Beiwei frowned and looked serious. Tang Li was sneering, Su Donglin's face was tense, and he kept shaking his head. Bailey Mingxiang's brows were furrowed and she was very angry. Gu instinctively took a step back and leaned against the wall. The uneasiness in his heart grew. He didn't ask any more questions and turned to leave. At this moment, Han Yunxi finally spoke and asked angrily, "Gu, when did this happen? Tell me." Gu still didn't understand. "Gu Ling-er likes you very much, but you can't do this. You don't have a status and you actually... How can you do this?" Bailey Mingxiang, who had always been quiet, couldn't take it anymore and shouted angrily. "Bastard!" Tang Li threw these two words over. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything and just snorted softly. Gu Qishao still didn't understand what these people meant. He couldn't figure it out. What did he do? He looked at Han Yunxi and couldn't bear to be fierce to her. He vented his anger on Bailey Mingxiang and Tang Li and asked angrily, "What do you two mean? Say it clearly. What did I do? What does her pregnancy have to do with me? How am I a bastard?" Tang Li rushed over and grabbed Gu Qishao by the collar. "You don't have the guts to admit what you did? Gu, are you a man? The child in Mu Ling-er's stomach is yours. They're threatening you with your child, and you still refuse to admit it? Are you a coward? Don't tell others we know each other." When he said this, he was over Gu was completely. He allowed Tang Li to grab him by the collar without moving a muscle. Although everyone had clearly scolded him just now, he really hadn't thought of it that way. He thought they had misunderstood how he'd caused Mu Ling-er to be bullied and pregnant. How could he have done such a thing? Gu came back to his senses and pushed Tang Li away. He looked at everyone angrily. "What kind of person do you think I, Gu, am?" Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Gu's reaction shouldn't be an act. Given his temper, he wouldn't dare to deny what he'd done. However, the news from Northern Li was that Mu Ling-er was pregnant with Gu's child and wanted to threaten Gu to hand over a large number of medicinal ingredients. Jun Yixie didn't appear directly. The one who sent the letter to Pill Fiend Pharmacy was a rather famous pharmacy in Northern Li. The pharmacy was called Yangxin Pharmacy, and its owner was surnamed Yu Kebing. Jun Yixie probably didn't know that Han Yunxi already knew about Mu Ling-er and Ning Jing's whereabouts, so he went around in circles and asked Yu Kebing to come forward. The threatening letter clearly stated that Mu Ling-er was pregnant for almost 5 months. Mu Ling-er claimed that the child was Gu's. Yu Kebing asked Pill Fiend Pharmacy to send 10 dan of each of 8 medicinal ingredients to the border. He would send someone to pick them up. If they didn't arrive within 10 days, Whether Mu Ling could keep the child in her stomach would depend on luck. When Han Yunxi and the others saw the letter, they didn't believe it at first. However, when they thought about it carefully, there was no reason to not believe it. No one in Northern Li knew about the relationship between Mu Ling and Gu. Even if someone knew that Mu Ling liked Gu, they wouldn't use such a thing to threaten Gu. Whether it was true or not, Gu knew best, didn't he? In short, the matter of the pregnancy and whose child it was couldn't be faked. Therefore, there was only one reason why Northern Li would send such a threatening letter. Mu Ling was really pregnant and had admitted that the child was Gu's. Ning Cheng's previous letter didn't mention Mu Ling's pregnancy. Did Ning Cheng think that they knew about it or had forgotten? Mu Ling said it herself, and you still want to go back on your word? Gu, I didn't expect you to be such a person. Tang Li sneered. Gu's anger rose to the doorway. When he was about to refute, Bailey Mingxiang said, Gu, would Ling go back on her word? If it wasn't true, why would she go back on her word and ruin her reputation? Mu Ling wouldn't do such a thing, and there's no reason for her to do so. She's just looking for trouble for no reason. Han Yunxi also spoke up, feeling sorry for her sister. Gu had a lot of words to refute, but when he heard their doubts, he couldn't say anything. Gu Qishao, tell me clearly. Just what's going on? When did you... Why was Ling so muddle-headed? She clearly knew that Gu wasn't sincere to her, so why was she willing? Han Yunxi found it hard to speak. Gu was at a loss for words. He looked at Han Yunxi seriously and asked, Poison Girl, do you really think I'm that kind of person? I just want to know what's going on. Would Mu Ling slander you? If you really liked Ling, why didn't you marry her first? You're ruining her reputation and bullying her. Han Yunxi retorted. Gu suddenly roared, I'm not that kind of person. If I really liked her, even if I didn't marry her, even if I didn't have a proper status, I'd still want her and get her pregnant. When he said this, everyone fell silent. Han Yunxi was stunned. For a moment, she didn't understand what Gu Qishao meant. Actually, not only Han Yunxi, but everyone else also didn't understand. Gu said again, I don't even like her, so why would I sleep with her? When he said this, the crowd suddenly fell silent. Everyone was angry about the issue of reputation, but it turned out that this guy didn't care about a woman's reputation at all. His focus was on whether he liked her or not. Han Yunxi was stunned. She looked at Gu blankly and couldn't say anything for a long time. At the end of the day, you're still an animal. Tang Li scolded. That's too much. Bailey Mingxiang couldn't understand Gu's logic at all. Gu Beiwei was already shaking his head, while Long Fei was narrowing his eyes as he pondered over Gu Qishao's words. Without a sound, he pulled Han Yunxi behind him to protect her. Everyone fell silent. Gu said angrily, Where's the blackmail letter? Let me take a look. Han Yunxi was about to hand it over when Long Fei took it and threw it to Gu. Gu skimmed through the blackmail letter, put it in his pocket, and was about to leave. Long Fei finally said, Where are you going? Gu was furious. To look for the child's mother. You're not allowed to go anywhere before this matter is cleared up. Long Fei said. You think I won't go just because you told me not to? Gu asked in disdain. Go ahead and try. Long Fei threatened. If I don't go then... Before Gu could finish speaking, he saw the threatening look in Long Fei's eyes and suddenly stopped. Tang Li was so impulsive earlier that even Long Fei didn't let him go. How could Gu do the same? What are you going to do? Long Fei asked word by word. Gu narrowed his eyes and met his gaze. The atmosphere between the two instantly became tense. However, Gu quickly turned his head away and snorted. Nothing. I'm going to sleep. Remember to clear my name after you figure it out. It had to be said that Gu had a face that could topple cities and countries. He didn't feel out of place when he said the vulgar word, I, every day. Instead, he had an indescribable manly charm. He leaped onto the roof and continued to lie on his back, basking in the sun as if the argument had never happened. Everyone looked up at the roof, but they couldn't do anything about him. Su Donglin, come with me to Myriad Merchant Hall. We have to get to the bottom of this immediately, Han Yunxi said seriously. Whether this was true or not, they would know once they asked Ning Cheng. Everyone dispersed, but Long Feiyi was still looking at the roof. Gu basked in the warm winter sun, feeling warm and lazy. However, for some reason, he felt an inexplicable chill. He sat down and looked down, only to see Long Fei's face as cold as millennium shen ice. "You come down," Long Feiyi said. "You come up." Gu was on guard. "Are you coming down?" Long Feiyi asked again. "Are you coming up?" Gu didn't give Long Feiyi time to answer. He hurriedly said, "If you're not coming up, I'll pull you down." He was about to leave when Long Feiyi flew up and landed in front of him. Gu hurriedly retreated. "I'll go down. I'll go down, okay?" Gu immediately flew down and fled out the door. Unfortunately, just as he reached the door, Long Feiyi landed at the door and stopped him. "Stay away from Han Yunxi," Long Feiyi warned coldly. So speaking, she brushed past Gu Qixiao's shoulder, leaving him alone with a complicated expression. Gu seemed to have just realized what he had said in his impulsiveness. He scratched his forehead and rubbed his nose, gradually feeling uneasy. How would Poison Girl look at him from now on? In the following days, Gu was very depressed. When everyone saw him, they looked at him with disdain. He didn't care at all. However, every time he saw Han Yunxi, he didn't dare to look into her eyes. Actually, what he said that day wasn't wrong. He was just like that. However, his behavior, his temper, and his principles were all ineffective when it came to Han Yunxi. Soon, Ning Cheng's reply came from Myriad Merchant Hall. The truth was revealed. It turned out that Mu Ling had pretended to be pregnant to cover for Ning Jing and had found Gu to take the blame. Chapter 993. Ning Cheng hadn't mentioned Mu Ling at all, but he'd left it out. After all, that wasn't the main point of Ning Cheng's cooperation with them. This time, Ning Cheng's reply was clear and concise. Right now, none of Jun Yixia's men, including Uncle Cheng and Deacon Jean, knew about Ning Jing's pregnancy. He'd already had Bai Yuqiao negotiate with him so that Bai Yuqiao would send servant girls to serve Mu Ling within the next few days. In name, they'd be serving Mu Ling but in reality, they'd be serving Ning Jing. Bai Yuqiao had ways to prevent the guards from entering the tent to see Ning Jing and Mu Ling. Still, they had to be on guard against Jun Yixia meeting the two of them. Thus, Jun Yixia had to send his troops north to ensure their safety. Otherwise, changes could happen at any time. This time, Jun Yixia had used Yangxin Hall to blackmail them because Jun Yixia trusted Ning Qing even more after East Qin and the Ning clan troops started fighting. He was preparing to send his troops north in advance. With winter approaching, Northern Li's supply of medicinal ingredients was limited. Jun Yixia already had a way to buy grain, but not medicinal ingredients. There were too many grain merchants in the world. Long Feiyi's commander-in-chief's estate in the south-central regions had strictly controlled the flow of grain for the past year, but he still couldn't completely stop the underground trade. Moreover, the Tian and Western Zhou both had grain merchants who specialized in war. It wasn't strange that Jun Yixia had a way to buy grain. As for medicinal ingredients, most of Cloud Realm Continent's cultivation was controlled by Medicine City and Medicine Ghost Valley. Jun Yixia didn't have much in stock, so he really had to use Mu Ling's child to threaten Pill Fiend Pharmacy. After figuring out the ins and outs of the matter, Gu chuckled. This old man's illustrious reputation was almost ruined by that damned girl. She's so warm-hearted. Indeed, Mu Ling was warm-hearted enough to joke about her own reputation. Everyone found it hard to understand, especially Bailey Mingxiang. As a woman, reputation was the most important thing. It was even more important than her life. But Han Yunxi understood Ling's painstaking efforts. She said, "Gu, don't blame Ling. She didn't do it on purpose." Gu Qixiao was about to retort when Han Yunxi explained, before Ning Jing was kidnapped, she accidentally bumped into Linger and fell. What? Tang Li was stunned. Ning Jing almost had a miscarriage and was bedridden for a long time. It was Ling who took care of her. She probably hadn't fully recovered yet when she was kidnapped, so Ling had to protect her, Han Yunxi explained. Everyone finally realized the truth. Tang Li was an understanding man and didn't blame Mu Ling. I'll have to thank her properly after we rescue everyone. If she marries one day, my Tang clan will prepare a large dowry for her. Tang Li's words weren't simple at all. The dowry had two meanings. One was the amount of the dowry and whether it was generous or not. The other was that the dowry represented a backing force. If the Tang clan gave Mu Ling a dowry, it was telling her husband's family and the world that Mu Ling had the backing of the Tang clan. Han Yunxi was overjoyed. She was happy for Mu Ling. Mu Ling didn't have a family to speak of after the Mu clan fell. But when she saw Gu Qixiao's indifferent expression, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Would her silly sister still be willing to marry in this lifetime? Gu's mood finally cleared up. He was debt-free. He took out the blackmail letter and placed it on the tea table. What's the matter? Agree to their demands. Tang Li said anxiously. Brother, sister-in-law, how much does this cost? I'll pay for it. If they didn't agree, Jun Yixie and the others would definitely suspect Ning Jing if they found out that Mu Ling's belly was fake. To Tang Li, keeping Ning Jing in the Sky River barracks was already his bottom line. He couldn't take any more risks. Your big brother and Myriad Merchant Hall have to pay for it together, Han Yunxi said, before smiling at Long Fei Yi. Pill Fiend Pharmacy will give you a 20% discount. Tang Li didn't understand, so Gu Beiyue explained, Princess's words are reasonable. As far as this one knows, Northern Li's medicine storehouses have always been in the hands of the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Jun Yixie once worked with Medicine City's Mu clan in private and had discussions with Cloud Realm Trade Consortium to grow medicine on Northern Li's snowy mountains. But now they're all under the control of the Northern Dynasty's emperors. The Northern Dynasty's emperors have medicine, but Jun Yixie doesn't. The two of them are evenly matched, but the Northern Dynasty's emperors still have the upper hand. Han Yunxi nodded, then continued, when two sides fight, once one side gains the upper hand, the battle won't last long. Long Fei Yi naturally agreed with Han Yunxi and Gu Beiyue's words. He added, the longer the civil war drags on, the greater the internal friction and losses, and the greater the demand. As long as Jun Yixie and the Northern Dynasty's emperors are evenly matched, the civil war will drag on for half a year before both sides are crippled. As Long Fei Yi spoke, he ordered, Su Donglin, send a letter back to Yangxin Pharmacy to prepare the medicine. Also, tell manager Luo to send a few carts of grain to the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Kangon Private Bank was a huge financial house. Naturally, there were some profitable businesses under the financial house, such as salt, sugar, and grain. Noble Consort Xiao had long reported to the Northern Dynasty's emperors about their lack of grain. Now was the time to find a few grain merchants to swindle the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Gu didn't like these political battles and was too lazy to pay attention to them, but he understood as soon as he heard them. He clicked his tongue a few times and said, Long Fei Yi, you're the most despicable one. Political tactics, despicable, scheming, shrewd, clever, and wise were all words that had different meanings in different situations and different people. Long Fei Yi was very clear on what he wanted, so he never cared about other people's opinions. He only knew that if he wanted to rule the world, he had to be unafraid of its curses. One day, he would be the one to write the history of Cloud Realm Continent. Then the common people would have their own opinions. Long Fei Yi said, Everyone, go make preparations. There's no need to wait for the war horses to arrive. Ning Cheng will definitely give Jun Yixie the soldiers' pay and provisions first. Northern Li's civil war is coming soon. Since he'd already given Jun Yixie the medicine, Ning Cheng knew it was time to pay and provisions. Long Fei Yi's guesses were right. On the second day after Pill Fiend Pharmacy agreed to give him the medicine, Ning Cheng went to find Jun Yixie of his own accord. He said, I'm afraid we'll fail at Qingyang Prefecture. I've ordered the army to prepare to retreat to Heiyang Pass. Jun Yixie was a little surprised. He assumed that the Ning clan troops could defend Qingyang Prefecture for at least a month. How much longer can they hold out? He asked. They'll lose Qingyang Prefecture within 10 days, Ning Cheng's expression was heavy. You! Jun Yixie was furious. When did the Ning clan troops become so weak? Ning Cheng gave a cold snort. If you let me go back, I promise I can hold out for 2 months. Ning Cheng wasn't with the army, so his deputy generals had misled the troops. This was a very convincing reason. Jun Yixie pursed his lips and pretended not to hear. His hand tapped on the map on the table in a hurry, revealing his inner uneasiness. Ning Cheng's lips curved into a cold smile as he stood in the shadows, unmoving. The phoenix feather mask covered one of his eyes. His other eye was hidden in the shadows, and his gaze was deep and cold. It was even more unfathomable than the mysterious phoenix feather mask. Jun Yixie pondered for a long time before he finally cracked a joke. Ning Cheng, you don't have to go back. The warhorses should arrive in Tianning in 7 days or so. Why don't you give them their pay and provisions first? Ning Cheng was waiting for Jun Yixie to say those words, but he pretended to hesitate. How much do you want? Previously, when Jun Yixie had demanded a lion's share of 1 billion, Ning Cheng had haggled and promised to give him 500 million as soon as they got the horses. The remaining 500 million would be given later. Ning Cheng wasn't just a soldier, but a merchant as well. Although he had been quiet in the army these days, he had long settled Jun Yixie's debts. Jun Yixie's current expenses were nothing more than a few. The first was the pay and provisions for his own cavalry, the second was the pay and provisions for the various powers in Northern Li, the third was the cost of roping in the middle powers, and the fourth was the cost of buying and transporting horses from Winter Crow country. Currently, the second batch of horses numbered around 30,000 and were about to arrive at Sky River City. If not for the tight costs, they would have arrived a few days ago. Meanwhile, the third batch of horses was still in Winter Crow country and had yet to be paid. Jun Yixie's plan was to use the second batch of horses to attack the Northern Dynasty's Emperor's forces from the central and southern regions of Northern Li. Jun Yixie was in the southwest, while the Winter Crow country was in the northwest. Once the pay and provisions were in place, he could send someone to Winter Crow country to bring back the third batch of horses. At the same time, he could lead his cavalry to attack the Northern Dynasty's emperors from the northwest. In any case, Jun Yixie had made ample preparations to attack the Northern Dynasty's emperors from 3 sides. Everything was ready, except for money. He wasn't in a rush, but now that the Ning clan troops were being routed, he had to be on guard against the Long Fei Yi for 3 months. Thus, the sooner Northern Li's civil war broke out, the safer his rear would be. 200 million. Compared to the agreed-upon 500 million, Jun Yixie could be considered to have made a profit this time. Seeing Ning Cheng hesitate, he said seriously, Ning Cheng, the sooner I deal with the Northern Dynasty's emperors, the sooner I can go down south to help you. Think carefully. 100 million. Ning Cheng acted as if there was no room for discussion. It's enough for your expenses for 3 months and the debt from the Winter Crow country. I'm making an exception. As long as the horses are in the hands of the Ning clan troops, the remaining money will not be reduced. 100 million was far more than enough for Jun Yixie to fight against the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Ning Cheng didn't plan to give Jun Yixie any more money. He also understood that Jun Yixie couldn't be too weak. Once he was too weak, he would be suppressed by the Northern Dynasty's emperors, and this war wouldn't last long. A war that didn't last long would only end with one side losing. It would never end with both sides suffering heavy losses. Spending some money to let Jun Yixie deal with the Northern Dynasty's emperors was better than the Ning clan troops charging in personally. With the agreement in place, Jun Yixie didn't force Ning Cheng. He also knew that 100 million was enough for him to spend a lot. Just like that, Ning Cheng straightforwardly gave Jun Yixie 2 gold cards and told him the designated bank. He also wrote a letter for him to withdraw the money. A few days later, Han Yunxi and the others received news of the civil war in Northern Li at the 3-way black market. Jun Yixie was waiting for the second batch of horses and cavalry to get used to each other. The forces in the south and central regions were the ones mobilizing the troops. However, after waiting for another 2 days, Han Yunxi and the others received news from Ning Cheng. Jun Yixie's beast tamers were very good at controlling the horses. In a few days, Jun Yixie would send troops up north. And it was also in these few days that Jun Yixie would make arrangements for Ning Jing, Mu Ling, and Su Xiaoyu. Chapter 994. Jun Yixie was ready to send his troops to the north at any time. Han Yunxi and the others were waiting. Ning Cheng was also waiting for Jun Yixie to make arrangements for Su Xiaoyu and the other hostages. Bringing hostages into battle was just asking for trouble. Jun Yixie was not that impulsive. He would either keep the hostages imprisoned in Tianhe City or secretly transfer them to another place. Early in the morning, Jun Yixie personally came to find Ning Cheng. "I'll take you to a good place. Do you want to come?" he asked with a smile. Recently, his mood had been very good. "Where?" Ning Cheng asked. You'll know when we get there." Jun Yixie gave a look and the attendant came over to help Ning Cheng put on the blindfold. Ning Cheng more or less guessed something, but he did not ask. Under the guidance of the attendant, he followed Jun Yixie into the carriage. Along the way, Ning Cheng did not say anything. He silently calculated the time, according to the bumpiness of the carriage, the terrain, and the road conditions. The carriage ran very fast. They only got off when it was close to noon. Jun Yixie seemed to be afraid of revealing something, so he did not say a word. After walking for a while, Jun Yixie personally took off Ning Cheng's blindfold. Ning Cheng then realized that Jun Yixie had not only brought him, but also Ning Jing and the others. Ning Cheng glanced and found that Ning Jing, Mu Linger, Su Xiaoyu, Deacon Jean, and Uncle Cheng had all come. As for Bai Yu Qiao, she was standing behind them with an unsightly expression. They were in a dense forest. It was so dense that they could not see the road. Not far away, there were two small courtyards. The walls were quite high. Under the cover of the trees, it was very hidden. If the sky was a little darker, he would not be able to see the outline of the house. Ning Cheng quickly understood that Jun Yixie intended to imprison the hostages here. However, there was nothing special about this place other than the fact that it was hidden. Fortunately, he had the foresight to find an opportunity in the past few days to tell Ning Jing everything that needed to be told. Otherwise, he would never have the chance to talk to Ning Jing alone again. "Jun Yixie, what are you doing? If you have the guts, go fight with my sister one-on-one. What's the point of kidnapping me?" Mu Linger scolded angrily. Ning Jing was silent. Although she was covered by a loose skirt, she still stood behind Mu Linger and tried to straighten her back, afraid that Jun Yixie would notice something was wrong. Su Xiaoyu was still a little unsteady on her feet and had to be supported by a servant girl. She looked at everyone with shifty eyes. No one knew that she was thinking about her real name in her heart and did not say anything. Jun Yixie looked towards Mu Linger and suddenly opened his mouth to roar at her. Mu Linger was shocked and retreated a few steps before scolding, "Lunatic, I'm not afraid of you." Who would have thought that as soon as he finished speaking, waves of tiger roars suddenly came from all directions, causing the entire dense forest to tremble. There were tigers, and there were quite a few of them. Everyone finally realized the danger of this place. Mu Linger was alarmed. Hearing the bursts of tiger roar, she only felt her hair stand on end. Heavens, Jun Yixie actually raised tigers to guard them. This guy was really a lunatic. She obediently shut her mouth, afraid that if she spoke any more, she would attract the tigers' attention and become the target of their attack. Ning Cheng pondered in his heart. The Black Clan understood the language of beasts and were good at controlling animals. The tigers around them must have been domesticated by Jun Yixie. Jun Yixie locked the hostages here. Not only did he arrange for poison guards to guard them, he also arranged for a group of tigers to guard them. This defense was indeed very thorough and tight. If it wasn't for Bai Yu Qiao, this insider, saving Ning Jing and the others would be harder than ascending to the heavens. Ning Cheng inadvertently looked towards Bai Yu Qiao and saw that Bai Yu Qiao's brows were tightly knitted. All his attention was on Su Xiaoyu. "Su Xiaoyu stays. Bring the others in," Jun Yixie lazily said. A complicated look flashed past Ning Cheng's eyes, but he still didn't say anything. He originally thought that Jun Yixie would leave Uncle Cheng and Deacon Jean by his side. From the looks of it, Jun Yixie didn't leave anyone useful to him. Mu Ling struggled with all her might, but she was the first one to be sent through the door. Deacon Jean was very well behaved. He didn't need the attendants to escort him and walked in by himself. Ning Jing turned around and looked towards Ning Cheng. Jun Yixie, what right do you have to lock me and Mu Ling together? If you let me stay by my brother's side, I promise to help you get the Tang sect's most powerful hidden weapon. Ning Jing was putting on an act. She couldn't wait for Jun Yixie to leave her here and not care about her. Uncle Cheng was really unwilling, but he acted out of character. He didn't make a fuss and obediently followed the attendants. The Tang sect? You don't have to be anxious. When this prince and your brother return in triumph, this prince will definitely discuss with the Tang sect master how to ransom you back. Jun Yixie looked towards Ning Cheng and asked, "Don't you agree?" "You decide," Ning Cheng said coldly. Jun Yixie had brought him here today to let him personally witness the dangers of Tiger's prison and to let him personally see Ning Jing being locked up. He was undoubtedly warning him that if he dared to play any tricks in the future, Ning Jing wouldn't have an easy time. When the time comes, you just have to return Mu Ling to me. Let's make it clear that this hostage is mine, Ning Cheng added. No problem. Jun Yixie laughed heartily. She was already locked up here. When the time came, it was up to him to decide how to use her. Ning Jing was his chess piece to pin down Ning Cheng, and also a chess piece to rope in the Tang sect in the future. Mu Ling was an important bargaining chip for him to use against Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi in the future. These people were too important. He had no choice but to use Tiger's prison to imprison them. After taking them in, Jun Yixie said to Bai Yuqiao, "Lock Su Xiaoyu up in the dungeon. I'll leave this place to you. If you still can't find out the whereabouts of the perplexing butterfly illusion before I return, you don't have to stay by my side anymore." Bai Yuqiao's heart was incomparably heavy, but he still forced a smile. "Senior brother, this is Tiger's prison. Forget about the fact that no one can find this place. Even if someone could, they wouldn't be able to enter. I don't want to stay. It's so boring. I want to go to war with you." Jun Yixie glanced at him haughtily. "If you don't want to stay, you can scram right now." Bai Yuqiao immediately lowered his head and shouted at Su Xiaoyu exasperatedly, "What are you looking at? Come with me." After leading Bai Yuqiao and Su Xiaoyu into another small courtyard, Jun Yixie finally looked around and clapped his hands. Very quickly, several tigers slowly walked out from the surrounding forest. These tigers were all white tigers. However, unlike the average white tiger, these tigers' eyes were scarlet red. Each of them stared at Ning Cheng like a tiger eyeing its prey, as if they could pounce on Ning Cheng at any moment to tear him apart and devour him. Poison corpses? Ning Cheng couldn't help but raise his guard. Jun Yixie had many poison men under his command, and he had also raised some poison corpses. Humans could be used to raise poison, and so could tigers. If these tigers were raised by Jun Yixie, then it wouldn't be difficult to raise them as poison. Honorable Ning's knowledge is not small. Jun Yixie laughed. "This is the first time I've seen it," Ning Cheng said as he observed these white tigers. There were a total of 6 of them, and although they were eyeing him covetously, without Ning Cheng's next order, they didn't move at all. Since they were poison corpses, it wouldn't be easy for Bai Yuqiao to kill these tigers with poison. Ning Cheng finally understood why Bai Yuqiao's expression was so ugly just now. However, he still had some questions that he couldn't figure out, and he had to ask Bai Yuqiao. Jun Yixie waved his hand and summoned a red-eyed white tiger. Once the red-eyed white tiger approached him, it meekly lay down at his feet. Jun Yixie gently stroked the tiger's forehead and smiled at Ning Cheng, saying, "Although my black tribe can speak the language of beasts, it isn't easy to tame such ferocious beasts. I spent several years to tame them. Ning Cheng, when we return in triumph, I'll give you one." "Not interested. What's mine, I don't want less." Ning Cheng wasn't polite at all. Jun Yixie laughed, straightforward. "Let's go. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow, we'll head north with my troops and gallop through the grasslands. Since they were setting out tomorrow, Ning Cheng would only have a chance to see Bai Yuqiao tonight and deliver the secret letter. He looked towards the courtyard not far away, unsure if Bai Yuqiao would be able to leave this place tonight. Ning Cheng was still blindfolded before he was sent away. The time spent on the way back was much shorter than the time spent on the way to go. The way to go and the way back was definitely different. At night, Jun Yixie invited Ning Cheng to the barracks to drink. Late at night, he ordered someone to send him back to the barracks. Ning Cheng stood outside the barracks for a moment. He really hoped that when he went in, he would see Bai Yuqiao already waiting for him. Unfortunately, when he went in, there were only 2 attendants in the barracks. It was already late at night. Could Bai Yuqiao still come? That night, Ning Cheng sat leaning against the bed with a finished letter in his hands as he waited. Unknowingly, time passed. Seeing that the sun was about to rise, many soldiers in the barracks had already woken up. If Bai Yuqiao still didn't come, he wouldn't have a chance to see her alone. Just when Ning Cheng was about to give up, Bai Yuqiao suddenly barged in. She gave silver to the soldier in the tent and whispered a few words to him, and he went out. Ning Cheng quickly stood up. Before he could say anything, Bai Yuqiao said, "Ning Cheng, I really can't follow the army. That place is called Tiger's Prison. I know where it is, but I can't bring anyone out. I'll ask you one last time, can you save my little sister or not?" "I can't save her, but Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi can definitely save her," Ning Cheng replied in a low voice. Bai Yuqiao was shocked. Bai Yuqiao always knew that Ning Cheng wasn't sincere in cooperating with her senior brother, but she never thought that Ning Cheng would actually work with Long Fei Yi. So, the East Qin army and the Ning family army's recent battles were just an act? They were working together to harm her senior brother. "You just need to help Ning Jing send a letter. I promise that before Jun Yixie comes back, Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi will definitely come to save them," Ning Cheng said. If Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi worked together, even her master would be afraid, not to mention her senior brother's white tigers. Bai Yuqiao was suddenly enlightened. "Ning Cheng, you want to reap the benefits. You're so despicable. You don't have to join us. Su Xiaoyu can also join." Ning Cheng had an indifferent expression, "Only, you'll have to bear the consequences." At this time, Ning Cheng dared to tell Bai Yuqiao everything. He wasn't afraid that Bai Yuqiao would tell on him. "You promised me you wouldn't kill my senior brother." Bai Yuqiao was excited. This was her bottom line. "Don't worry, I can still spare his lowly life." When Ning Cheng said this, his heart was cold. If he didn't let Jun Yixie die, then Jun Yixie's life would be worse than death. Chapter 995. Ning Cheng handed the prepared secret letter to Bai Yuqiao. "Send it to Myriad Merchant Hall immediately. Also, if news of Ning Jing's pregnancy gets out, our cooperation will be terminated." Apart from the fact that Bai Yuqiao couldn't rescue them, she still had a lot of power in Tiger's Prison. She could arrange for her men to guard Ning Jing and Mu Ling. At this critical juncture, even if Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi could come to rescue them, they couldn't act rashly. Otherwise, Jun Yixie would definitely change his mind and be more cautious about sending troops north. Therefore, the only thing Ning Cheng could do now was to protect Mu Ling and Ning Jing for a limited time. Bai Yuqiao's defection was his fortune, but it was even more so for Ning Jing and Mu Ling. If it weren't for Bai Yuqiao, no one would have known that the situation would develop to this point. Bai Yuqiao had no choice. She fiercely snatched the secret letter and stuffed it into her sleeve. "Ning Cheng, remember what you said today. My senior brother is about to lose his life. I'll definitely make you pay for it." Bai Yuqiao hurriedly left. Ning Cheng exhaled. He knew that the matter was settled. All that was left was to wait. If Jun Yixie found out about today's arrangement one day, it would greatly facilitate the cooperation between Ning Cheng and Long Fei Yi. How much would he regret it? When Han Yunxi and the others received Ning Cheng's last letter, it was already early in the morning. The civil war in Northern Li had already begun. When Han Yunxi and the others received news of the civil war and Ning Cheng's letter, they could finally relax for a while. The situation was better than they'd expected. and it was also a few days earlier than they'd expected. As long as they could confirm that Ningjing and Ling were safe for the time being, they could rest assured and head south. Bai Yuqiao not only sent a secret letter from Ningcheng, but also a secret letter from Ningjing. This secret letter was naturally for Tang Li. Tang Li squatted at the side and watched quietly. There wasn't much content, but he read it 3 times and started from the first word again. Tang Li, what's in the letter? Long Fei asked. He wrote it for me. Tang Li answered. With his reply, everyone knew that this letter had nothing to do with the big picture. It was just a private conversation between the couple. Actually, Ning Cheng's secret letter didn't specify the location of Tiger's prison, but Ning Jing's letter was very clear. She'd asked Bai Yuqiao about it in detail. No one knew what else Ning Jing wrote, but Tang Li was actually very calm. He didn't make a fuss and even took the initiative to say, "Big brother, you should go and come back early. I'll wait here. If there's any news, I'll immediately report it to you." He already knew where his wife and children were imprisoned, but he could still calm down and wait. What kind of reason did he need? What did Ning Jing's letter say? Everyone guessed that Tang Li's calmness had something to do with Ning Jing's letter, but they didn't ask. "Princess, Your Highness, this subordinate will be a burden if I follow you south. How about this subordinate also stay? First, I can help sect Master Tang, and second, it'll be easier for me to deal with Medical City and Pill Fiend Pharmacy," Gu Beiyue said seriously. The three-way black market really did need someone to stay behind to discuss and communicate with Myriad Merchant Hall. As the son-in-law of the D clan, Tang Li was the most suitable candidate. Tang Li was impatient, so Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi couldn't be more at ease with someone as calm as Gu Beiyue helping him. The two of them immediately nodded in agreement. The sooner they went south, the sooner they could come back to save the people. When spring came next year, Jun Yixie and the Northern Dynasty's emperors would be almost done fighting. When they came back, they would first save the people and then slowly deal with Jun Yixie. In reality, Long Feiyi was even more impatient than Tang Li. He wanted nothing more than to immediately cut Jun Yixie into pieces and avenge Han Yunxi's humiliation. It was just that he hid it all in his heart and didn't show it. He said indifferently, "We'll set out tonight. No one is allowed to delay. We'll try to reach Qingchuan Water City in half a month." Although their plan was very thorough, Bai Yanqing was still an unpredictable factor that could affect their movements at any time. Therefore, not only was time tight, but their mission was also very important. Not only did they have to find the Seven Fiends dagger, they also had to continue investigating the fire of 10,000 poisons. Against someone like Bai Yanqing, who was impossible to guard against, the only change was to quickly master all the medicinal catalysts for the perplexing butterfly illusion. That night, after Han Yunxi and the others bid farewell to Tang Li, they secretly left East Origin Hall. They didn't even alert Myriad Merchant Hall. Their whereabouts represented their safety. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Long Feiyi wouldn't allow it to be exposed. Although time was tight, Long Feiyi still arranged for a carriage. He couldn't bear for Han Yunxi to rush about too much. His and Han Yunxi's carriage moved forward, while Bailey Mingxiang and Su Donglin followed behind. Gu didn't like carriages, so he rode in front to lead the way. His speed was extremely fast. Fortunately, Uncle Gao and Su Donglin's driving skills weren't bad, so they were able to catch up. Fortunately, Long Feiyi's carriage was sturdy and stable enough. Otherwise, with their speed, it would have been impossible to avoid flipping over. Day after day, they headed south. The civil war in Northern Li grew more intense with each passing day. On the 15th day, Han Yunxi and the others really did arrive at Qingchuan Water City. Qingchuan Water City was located at the border between the South Central Commander-in-Chief's office and Tian. It was under Tian's jurisdiction and was an ancient city with a long history. It was also a very famous water city within Tianan. The reason why it was called a water city was because there were hundreds of water systems in the city, crisscrossing each other. Every household had a river flowing through their door, and every household had a river flowing through their door. Boats were also a necessity for every household. Almost all of the transportation in the city relied on boats. Unlike other water cities, Qingchuan Water City had a very big characteristic. This water city was in the shape of the 8 trigrams, with a total of 8 city gates. The hundreds of water systems in the city were actually formed after the 8 main water systems flowed in, forming intricate and complicated branches. And the 8 city gates were built on top of the 8 main water systems. In the center of Qingchuan Water City was a not small lake called Enchanting Lake. The houses were distributed in a ring around this lake, one ring at a time. If one stood at the highest point, at night, every house would be lit, and they would see a very beautiful 8 trigram spectacle. At this moment, it was night. Han Yunxi and the others had already entered the city. They were sitting on a boat, heading to the inn where they were staying. It was strange to say that once they entered the city, the waterways were very lively. There were lights on both sides of the river, and there were many boats going back and forth. Many people were even singing ballads on the boats. But the closer they got to the center of the city, the fewer lights there were, and the more deserted the waterways were. Logically, the closer to the center of the city, the more lively it should be. This Qingchuan Water City was the opposite. Long Fei Ye's spies found out that 2 months ago, there was a strange incident in Qingchuan Water City. Every few days, there would be a woman killed. So far, there were already 6. And the way the deceased died was the same. The abdomen was stabbed, and the murder weapon was a dagger. However, after the coroner's examination, he found that the cause of death was not the abdomen wound, but bleeding from the 7 orifices. As for the cause of bleeding from the 7 orifices, he still couldn't find out. Now, all the corpses were frozen in the memorial hall, and the inn where Han Yunxi and the others were staying was near the memorial hall. Why are there fewer and fewer people? Han Yunxi asked. Seeing that no one answered her, the old boatman said, Enchanting Lake has been strange since ancient times. Everyone doesn't dare to get too close. Many feng shui masters have said that the closer you are to Enchanting Lake, the worse the feng shui is. The city wasn't lively in the first place, and there were several murder cases by the lake a while ago, so it was even more deserted. The old boatman asked, Is this the first time you've come to Qingchuan Water City? It's not fun here. This old man advises you to hurry back if there's nothing important. Although Han Yunxi and the others were in disguise, their temperament couldn't be concealed. One look and you could tell that they were either rich or respectable. At first, the old boatman didn't dare to say much. It was only after hearing Han Yunxi's words that he dared to remind them. Before Han Yunxi and the others came, they naturally investigated those murder cases clearly. Han Yunxi opened her mouth to ask the boatman to know if what they heard was true. Sure enough, after a conversation, the situation was similar. The deceased were all women and died in the same way, which proved that the murderer was the same person. Now they only wanted to confirm one thing. Those 6 women were bleeding from the 7 orifices. Was it because of poisoning? As long as the corpses were still there, it wasn't difficult for Han Yunxi to figure out this matter. After arriving at the inn, Han Yunxi originally intended to go directly to the coffin home. But seeing that it was late at night, she was afraid that it would delay the dual cultivation, so she could only drop the idea. Gu wasn't at all well behaved. When he saw Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi enter the house, he quietly left the inn and went to the coffin home. After days of rushing about, even if it was by carriage, it was still very tiring. In addition, Han Yunxi didn't delay her cultivation in the poison storage space. After she and Long Fei Yi finished their dual cultivation homework, she fell asleep exhausted. However, the next morning, they were awakened by the noise outside. When she and Long Fei Yi finished packing and opened the door, they saw that Su Donglin and Bailey Mingxiang were already outside. What's going on? Long Fei Yi asked. Your Highness, the coffin home is on fire. Su Donglin replied. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi panicked and rushed out. The two of them stood on the balcony on the 2nd floor of the inn and could see that the coffin home had turned into a sea of fire not far away. The coffin home was surrounded by waterways and it was easy to put out the fire. How did the fire burn so fiercely? When did this happen? Long Fei Yi asked. Just now. It suddenly caught on fire and there was no time to save it. Su Donglin replied truthfully. Did they use oil? Han Yunxi asked seriously. Long Fei, let's go and take a look. No matter what the cause of the fire was, it was definitely man-made. It was very likely that they wanted to destroy the corpses they were investigating. Time was too tight, otherwise, they would have gone over last night. Where's Gu? Long Fei asked. With such a big commotion, Gu should have been awakened. I haven't seen him since early morning. Maybe he went over early? Su Donglin replied. Long Fei was least worried about Gu. He didn't ask much and immediately rushed to the coffin home with Han Yunxi. As soon as they got close to the place, Han Yunxi smelled a strong smell of oil. Someone must have used a large amount of oil for the fire to burn so fiercely. With such a big fire, even if the corpses were frozen, they would have been burned to ashes. Isn't this fire too coincidental? Han Yunxi said with annoyance. Long Fei was also very regretful, but last night's dual cultivation had to continue. He said lightly, let's go and see what the magistrate court can find out. Han Yunxi didn't leave. Let's wait. If there are some skeletons left, maybe we can examine them. The poison that bled from the 7 orifices must be highly toxic and could easily enter the bones. Therefore, the skeletons were Han Yunxi's last hope. They sat down in a nearby tea house and waited quietly for the fire to be put out. Helplessly, the fire only died down a little when night fell. Su Donglin looked for Gu the whole day but couldn't find him. He hurried back and whispered, Your Highness, Princess, Gu is missing. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.